We'll start with our mission statement. Mission statement for District 742 is as follows. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. We did receive 26 questions through our website for public input. I have printed them out. I read all of them. They all have been assigned to the appropriate executive director for responses. Next up, we will officially start the meeting. So now it's 6:34. Les, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Les.
So my
And
mic,
now could you take roll, please?
mic is on. Jeff Fulrice,
Here.
Monica Segura Schwartz,
Here.
Al Dahlgren,
Here.
Shannon Hawes,
Here.
Natalie Ringsmuth,
Here.
Zach Dorholt,
Present.
Les Green is present. I'm going to read off the execs, and if you're here, if you would, I mean, they're not in the room with us, so someone, as you answer, just tell us where you are. Thank you. Superintendent, or I'll wait with Superintendent Jett. Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, Dr. Marcia Beisch.
I am present at my home. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Dr. Lori Putnam.
I'm present here in the DAO.
All right. Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, Lori Posch.
I am present at my home.
Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education, Carol Potter.
I am present at my home.
Executive Director of Research, Evaluation, Assessment, and Enrollment, Dr. Sylvia Huff.
I am present at my home.
Executive Director of Community Education, Adam Holm.
I am present at my home.
Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, Amy Scalarud.
I am present at the DAO.
Executive Director of Operations, Gary Ganji.
I am present at my home.
Executive Director of Human Resources, Tracy Flynn Bowe.
Present at my home.
Director of Community Education and Communication, Tammy DeLand.
I am present at my home.
Executive Assistant Mary Kusterman is.
And I am present at my home.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Here you are, sir. Oh, and Mr. Jett was called away for a moment, and he will return shortly.
I am present, and I'm here. I am present, and I'm at the DAO.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up on our agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items.
Mr. Polrees, Chair Polrees, you need to unmute, I believe. The community cannot hear you.
Yep. Thank you. Now that I'm unmuted, the next up on our agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's agenda, we have item A, it's approval of the agenda. Item B, approval of minutes for the meetings we had on July 15th and August 5th. Item C is approval of payments of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total amount of $3,484,096.22. Item D is the approval of personnel staff changes. Item E is the acceptance of grants and awards and donations. Item F is proposed revised board policies 515 and 535. They're up for its third and final reading. Item G, parking lot improvements. It happened at Lincoln and Westwood change orders. They total $88,143.00. Item H, calling for the school board general election. Item I, bid award, sale of MacBook computers. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll motion to accept tonight's consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
A second.
I had a second and a third and a fourth right there, so we're good. Les, would you mind taking roll, please?
Les Green is yes. Zach Dorholt,
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth,
Yes.
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz,
Yes.
Jeff Polreis.
Yes. All right, thank you, Les. Next up is information items. Tonight we have one, it's school updates, COVID updates. It's going to be done by Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, Dr. Marcia Beisch. Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Dr. Lori Putnam. And Ryan Cox of our Communication Department is going to assist.
And I do believe, Chair Polreis, the entire executive team will be part of
Oh.
this presentation.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, who's going to start it off?
I don't see the presentation, so I'm waiting for that to come up, but I'm going to kick us off. So I'm assuming that Ryan's working on bringing that up, but I'll kick us off. So I'd just like to say good evening, Chair Polreis, Board of Education, and members of the public who have joined us this evening. Tonight, we're going to provide you with a brief updates from our Cabinets Department perspectives. We welcome questions at the end of the presentation, and Dr. Sylvia Huck will start us out as soon as the presentation is up. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the first topic that I will be covering is the Welcome Center and enrollment. And so August is one of our busiest months of the year for the Welcome Center, as you all know. And since presenting a couple weeks ago, the Welcome Center has transitioned from being by appointment only to reopening to the public full-time. Families are always welcome to stop in during our office hours from 7:30 until 4 in order to handle any enrollment needs that they may have. In order to maintain proper social distancing, the Welcome Center is only allowing a limited number of visitors in the center at a time. However, we have wonderful door attendants and a very smooth process of alerting waiting families of when it's their turn. We also continue to offer the option for families to pick up enrollment packets. So we have a very quick pickup site where you can pick up folders and drop them off right at the front entry. And of course, families are also always have the option to enroll online if they so prefer. These enrollment options are available for both our district model as well as for enrolling within the Distance Learning Academy. And if any families have any questions about enrollment, they are always welcome to contact the Welcome Center by phone or email. Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, from a human resources update, we have been working on a staff guide that is very similar to the family guide, and those are in the final stages of completion, and those will be published later this week. We've been working on staffing for the Distance Learning Academy and all the related changes to schools as approximately 1,400 plus students have enrolled in the Distance Learning Academy. That requires us to move staff from school sites to support those students in the Distance Learning Academy. And that's requiring some staffing changes then behind in the sites as we go. So all of that has been underway at the speed of light, and we hope to have that completed by the end of the week as well. We've been continuing our meetings with bargaining units to do our, what I'm calling COVID solution meetings from each of those groups' perspectives, and those are going very well, and I really appreciate the partnership of all of our bargaining units in this work. We've been processing all the requests for medical accommodations from our staff. As you know, the governor's order, executive order requests that we accommodate staff with their own serious medical concern or a household member with a serious medical concern. And so we have, now that we have the Distance Learning Academy enrollments established, we can now start staffing that with staff that would be appropriate with medical accommodations to be teaching in that remote environment. So that is underway, and staff are starting to receive those notices that we're able to accommodate them in the Distance Learning Academy. And lastly, we're busy planning for back to school training schedules for all of our non-licensed staff that will start on September 3rd and continue into September 8th. And we'll be building those schedules with all of the departments and the schools that will be supporting that training. Thanks, Ryan.
So in student services, and so we are planning a lot of professional development and trainings to go along with our COVID-19 planning. And so we have CPR coming up and first aid for all of our LPNs, our health office backups, our care. If you recall, our isolation rooms are called care rooms, and we will have care support paras helping us out there. And so we are doing lots of training around that to help us teach them to support how to use those rooms. And then we have a more in-depth plan for our COVID-19 response team for our licensed school nurses and also our LPNs and care support. So we have to know how to respond if a student comes to the health office with characteristics, symptoms of COVID, and is it something other than COVID? And so we have to be prepared to make the difference, make the call between the two. Do I go to the regular health office? Do I seek care in the care room? And so we have a lot of upcoming training here towards the end of the month for that. And then also on the positive side of things, we have PBIS training that took place last week, and every PBIS team at every site is developing a matrix column for the COVID-19 lessons that we want to teach every age level at every school. And it's regarding around the safety protocols for COVID as well. And they will also, in addition to that, teach their regular matrix as well. And so in addition to the PBIS, we have social emotional learning. We are pushing out school resources and lesson banks. So the lessons are already prepared for our teachers and our behavior resource specialists for kids in all grades. And then our secondary mental health team, which makes up about 85 providers in our schools, are preparing in depth for what our kids need when they come back. What is going to happen? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What kind of awareness strategies do they need to be using once they return to school? And then part of that plan is a suicide awareness plan. Every school district has some incidences that are sad around suicide. And so we really are going to prepare our kids in a way that will support that need. If they need to reach out to someone for support, that they know where to go in our schools to get that support. Thanks, Ryan.
Tracy, I think your mic's off.
Whoops, excuse me. Thank you. This next slide will help us demonstrate how we're going to track and evaluate the impact of the COVID virus once the school year begins. So as we know, at this point, we'll be entering the school year in the hybrid model. The chart that you see on the top is just the governor's matrix, and that's what we've seen before, where he set those number of cases per 10,000 population, and moving to different levels of concern based on the level of community spread in each of the counties. And so we match those levels. So you see in the matrix below is our district COVID-19 response matrix. We will have a district COVID response team that will track the data from week to week. That data will include the number of staff that are COVID positive or quarantined and the number of students that are COVID positive or quarantined. The school nurses will be monitoring, tracking, and providing the data from students. HR will be monitoring, tracking, and providing the data for employees. And the COVID response team, which is made up of several members of the superintendent's cabinet, including also Chris Erickson from the SCEA, and nurse Jess Voss as a consultant to that team, and Shane Keating from my department, who is the COVID representative for the staff. We'll come together, we'll review that data, and then we'll make decisions based on this matrix. The matrix, as you can see, is set up. The green is at the lowest level of concern from the governor's matrix. The yellow is that second level of concern, and the third is the third level on the governor's matrix. And if you go across the criteria at the top, you see that if we have one student or one staff member and we can quickly isolate and trace contacts for that, if we're in the 0 to 9 or the 10 to 19, there's no school-based response to that. We'll be notifying anybody who are direct contacts. We'll do whatever cleaning is necessary, but there is no risk of closing at those levels. As you move across the criteria to, say, criteria 4, if we had 5+ students in multiple clusters that it's hard to see the connection, it's harder to make decisions that we might be able to isolate that exposure to a classroom or to a grade level or to a wing of a particular school. As we see those outbreaks of COVID positive cases start to spread out, to multiply, and to be in multiple clusters within a building or across buildings, it raises the level of concern, of course. As we get that data, we'll use this matrix to help us make decisions. But of course, all of these decisions, according to the governor's executive order, have to be made in consultation with public health officials and with the regional response team that has been designed to support the school district in making these decisions. So that's just a quick overview of the chart. We consulted last week with a physician from CentraCare who's been working with the CentraCare urgent response team. They've reviewed this matrix and felt that it was a good guide for us as we enter the school year. We know that there aren't, this isn't just pick a box and pick a response. It's just telling us what things need to be considered by the district response team, and when we interact with our regional response team, how we were going to make decisions together about protecting the safety of our school community.
Now that we have an idea of the number of students participating in the Distance Learning Academy, the Nutritional Services Department is coming up with plans for a grab-and-go meal distribution from our elementary schools so that those meals can be delivered daily. Along with that, we're looking at solutions for families that are challenged to get to one of our 8 elementary schools. We're looking at things like supplying bus tokens or possibly working with community partners to help those families out. Our transportation department is busy rescheduling staff with the cleaning of buses. They're going to be working longer hours the 4 days a week that we're transporting, as well as they're busy routing buses to meet the needs of alternating day students so that we stay within that maximum capacity. Buildings and Grounds Department are busy. One thing I forgot to add here that we talked about a lot today with the staff is the relocating of furniture to spread out the instructional spaces and to create that 6-foot social distancing. They're also preparing cleaning supplies to go in each of the classrooms. And next week, once we get the PPE from the state, they'll be busy distributing that out to the buildings. And Ryan's team is busy on a couple fronts. They're busy deploying devices and hotspots, as well as preparing training for staff for when they return.
And as we move into learning and teaching, we know that August is always a very busy time for our department, as it is for other departments. And this year is no less busy than other years have been. I wanted to just call out a couple of areas that we've received some questions on just for clarification. As we recommended last time, we are moving forward with a hybrid model for our district, and I know that Superintendent Jent will be talking about that a little bit later. For our district, that means that we are following an AB Friday schedule, with Friday being a flex Friday. And I think that an important thing that I want to share with everybody is that our plan really does allow us to meet more often with our youngest and most vulnerable learners in a way that allows us to meet those capacity requirements that Gary and Tracy both mentioned as they were talking. We know that learning isn't just confined to a school building, but that learning will continue whether our students are on site or they're at home learning. And our Friday really allows us to be able to go deeper with the learning. It allows our teachers to provide some more specific and specialized interventions and enrichment, and also opportunities for those teachers to meet with individuals, small groups, virtually, and a focused chance for them to reach out and connect with our families. Also have received some questions about distance learning 2.0. And if you remember, this is one of the options, one of the models that the governor has identified. We've had some parents ask if they can choose distance learning 2.0. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the difference between distance learning 2.0 and the Distance Learning Academy, or DLA, is that this is a model that a school building or a district would move into based on that data from the counties. So it's not a choice that families have to enter into that, but it's a decision that would be made based on the model that we're in. Distance Learning 2.0 would have all of our students learning from home if we're in that model. And then Distance Learning Academy, or we're calling it DLA. And Tracy mentioned that we're well underway with the staffing and the registrations for DLA. Our teachers are the people who will be teaching in DLA. So it isn't that we are outsourcing those classes. It is actually our licensed teachers who will receive some additional training on engagement and enhancement when our students are learning virtually. And we also have been able to identify an administrator who will help with the oversight. And one piece that I want to call out that I didn't add on the slide was that yesterday and today, we have had the opportunity to welcome our new teachers to our school district and have had such a successful, resounding response from those new teachers. So a huge thank you to all of the departments who have modeled what excellent instruction looks like for our new teachers. The flexibility, most of our sessions have been virtual and have either been synchronous or asynchronous, just like we're asking our teachers to do. So a huge welcome to those new teachers this week.
Early childhood staff reached out to all early childhood families to ensure that they were able to choose the learning option that works best for their family. Distance Learning Academy is being offered for all 3- and 4-year-old preschool children. iPads for 3-year-olds will be dependent upon availability, but families were made aware of this when they were surveyed. Early childhood will follow the hybrid model for all preschool classes, following the A-B schedule at 50% capacity, and all children will attend 2 days per week. They will use the Seesaw platform for their at-home learning activities. We are also providing 4-year-old preschool families with an iPad so they can access their at-home learning instruction. Early childhood family education classes, or ECFE classes, will resume on site, and classes will have an enrollment capacity of 10. And all safety guidelines are being followed. All will wear masks, social distance of 6 feet, and cleaning protocols will be followed as well. I thought I would give a little more information about the K2 classrooms. As Lori alluded to, in our hybrid model, we are bringing all students in grades K through 2 back to school 4 days a week. Classrooms will be at 50% capacity with a licensed teacher. Classrooms, as Gary alluded to, or Tracy maybe, are being modified to allow for safe social distancing, and classroom assignments will be revised, and families will be notified shortly regarding who their child's teacher will be. Teachers in this model will engage in morning meeting with students on a daily basis, and Fridays will include time for deepening learning, providing interventions, enrichment, opportunities for teachers to meet with individual and small groups, and a day for school staff to connect with families. Goal-setting conferences are being planned to take place at sites as in previous years. Conferences will be held at the schools. Parents, guardians, and students will be asked to wear masks, and social distancing will apply during conferences. Families are asked to only bring the child or children who will be involved in establishing goals for the upcoming school year. And families will also receive information regarding their goal-setting conferences shortly from their school, from their principal or from their teacher. Device deployment will take place during goal-setting conferences. Families will have an opportunity to pick up their child's learning device at their scheduled conference time. This will be an opportunity for families to ensure that they and their student know how to use the device, log into CESA, and complete. There will also be time to complete all of the necessary paperwork, purchase insurance if they so desire, and so on. We want to utilize this time to ensure that families and students are set up for success, no matter the learning environment we find ourselves in.
Good evening. I'm excited to be able to update you on what's happening at secondary schools. This is one of the hardest times of year for us because we are so busy planning to get ready for our students, and we're just waiting and waiting for them to come through our doors. So some of the things that we're busy doing are planning our Welcome Back conferences. And that's the opportunity for our families and students to have a one-on-one virtual meeting with their advisor and just to get a sense of who this person is that will be guiding and supporting them through the year, and then get some of their questions answered. And we're also planning a new student welcome that will be led by our student leaders, the web students at middle school and the link leaders at high school. So that will be a great virtual orientation opportunity for our 6th and 9th graders. Despite the unusualness of this year, we're doing everything we can to recreate similar experiences in past years and make sure our students feel welcomed and are welcomed into our building. Last time you heard from Adam Holm about high school activities, so I just wanted to update you briefly about what's happening with middle school activities. We know how important these are for our students. At middle school, we will be offering soccer in person for our students on the days that they're assigned in our buildings, on A days or B days. We'll be focusing mostly on skill building and not so much on competitions. And that will begin in early September, so specifically the 14th and 15th. And you know, out of every cloud, there's a silver lining. So while our football and volleyball students or athletes won't be able to practice based on or have seasons in the fall based on the Minnesota State High School League rules, it's exciting that this year they're going to be able to go up to the high school. So our 7th and 8th graders who are interested in football and volleyball will actually be transported to our high schools to practice with our varsity coaches and our varsity players. So it's an incredible opportunity to build skills and create some vertical team spirit and to really get our middle level students excited about what's on the horizon for them at the high school. And of course, once school gets started, we'll be offering other online opportunities such as Knowledge Bowl, and we'll be doing a couple smaller plays so that we can still offer as many opportunities as possible. In terms of Distance Learning Academy, you've heard little bits and pieces about that, and we're excited that all of these parts will come together to make a great learning community. We're pleased that Heather Ebna, assistant principal at South, has taken on leadership of this academy while she'll also be supporting North. And we look forward to sharing information with our families about what it means to be a secondary student in this program later in the week. So we'll be talking or communicating with our families about attendance, what they can expect from a daily schedule, device and meal distribution activities, and their Welcome Back conferences. And finally, just a quick update about transitional housing. Our amazing team, Jen Locke and Rebecca Groenwald, are reaching out to all of our families who are experiencing transitional housing to explain what their options are in terms of coming either the 2 days or the 4 days a week, and making sure that they have all of the information they need and are prepared to begin school with us on September 8th. So a quick rundown of some of the updates at secondary.
Okay, in special education, we echo everything that everybody else has said so far with hiring and Distance Learning Academy. But specifically, the Distance Learning Academy, we have over 300 students with special needs that will be joining our Distance Learning Academy. And joining Heather Ebnett there will be Jack Peterson. He will be the special education supervisor to support those students and staff members there. And also our hybrid learning, we have services for students with disabilities that are ongoing. We had a town hall meeting for our families last night of students with special needs. And one of the questions was, how will my student receive all of their special education services in 2 days, if they're only in person 2 days? And so I explained to them that services really are delivered over the 5 days in a week. And so 2 days the students are going to be in front of them. The other 2 days are going to be virtual. However, we're going to provide virtual instruction, just like our general ed is doing. And we're also going to provide virtual itinerant staff support too. So speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, social work, all of those pieces will be in person and virtual. And then another question that came up that you may have been asked about as well is about how do I determine, how is it determined whether my student comes to school 2 days or 4 days? And so what I shared with all of the families was that it really is an IEP team decision. So if those services that I previously mentioned can be vended in 2 days, then the student will, it's 2 days in person that is, and 2 days virtual, then the student will come to school 2 days. If they need more support ongoing and their services can't all be vended in the 2 days, then that student would lean more towards the 4 days. And so families were wonderful. They were very understanding and asked really good questions last night. It was really a good hour. And then the other question we received a lot was masks and the PPE, the protective gear, equipment that teachers and students will have. And so I just reassured families that we will be supplying the masks and shields for kids that need them. And staff members will also be getting those pieces. And then when there's unique situations, if a student has some unique need that they're not able to wear a mask or a shield, we will find accommodations for that student so they can still participate at their general ed site. And so there may be students who aren't able to wear a mask, and then that IEP team has to figure out, what does that look like for the student? What do transition times look like? And what does opportunities to be social with other students look like as well? So thank you, everyone.
So that is all that we have in terms of presentation. So we'll entertain questions from board members at this time.
All right, tonight we'll go around the way. Natalie, you want to start us off?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Chair Polreese. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go back to a couple of things. One is Gary's slide on school lunches, and you had talked about the grab and go option that you have for our DLA, Distance Learning Academy. So can you talk a little bit more about what will happen for young kids in the Distance Learning Academy whose parents are at work during those lunch times? I know you said something about bus tokens, but I'm just thinking of our youngest kids who may be home alone.
I'm thinking that our youngest kids probably wouldn't be home alone. I would suspect there's some supervision there. we are, what, if you recall last spring when we started with the distance learning, we started with 3 elementary schools for the grab and go until we could gear up. One of the challenges that we're running into right now is that our buses that we used in the spring to deliver after we geared up are busy throughout the day transporting students. And so what we're trying to do is get those grab and goes further out into the neighborhoods, but we want to, we want to work with community partners. We've already reached out to a few to see if they can help on some of those situations. The bus tokens might work for some of our core neighborhoods, but as we branch out, those become more difficult with the bus tokens. So it's a plan to start with. We hope to gear up from there, but right now we're using all the resources we have.
Yeah, I mean, I know of kids who stay home as young as, well, very young. So I think we have to know that that's a reality in our community, and to make sure that all our kids are fed, and working with community partners is a great idea. Yeah. What about if, also for Gary, what about if we go to all distance learning because COVID cases rise? Will we do more of the bus option at that point if we can, or will it be grab and go for all elementary schools, or what are you thinking on that?
No, then we would have the resources available, and we would go out and we actually this summer, as we were coming up with the 3 scenarios, we were looking to see if there's a way to get further into those neighborhoods. I think we had 23 or 24 routes last year, and we were looking at, is there a way that we could go deeper into those neighborhoods? So we would shift over to that.
Okay, thanks, Gary. And then for Marcia and Lori, I was glad to hear Marcia lay out the K through 2 goal setting conferences plan. Is that the same for 3 to 5? Did I miss that?
That is the same for, yes, sorry, I didn't make that clear. Goal setting conferences will occur at elementary sites for students in grades K through 5.
Great, thank you, Marcia. And then are we doing that same thing 6-12, Lori, or how will those work?
They'll be very similar, but they're going to be virtual. They aren't going to be in person. We are doing device drop-off through a pickup, much like we did collection in the spring, so that students can grab and go. So we are going to do our conferences virtually in about 20-minute increments, not quite as long as at the elementary.
Thank you. When you said that, I'm like, oh, that's right, I got that email. I should know that. Okay, thank you, Lori. That's all I have, Chair Polreese. Thank you.
Zach, do you have any questions? Nope. Shannon, do you have any questions?
Hi. Thank you all. I support this, and thank you all for all the efforts that have gone into this plan. It's not easy, and a lot of people are upset and feel very passionate in one direction or the other. So thank you for all your efforts. I continue to have questions regarding our procedures with COVID. So thank you for answering all my emails. When I listened to this tonight, I think right now CDC and Minnesota Department of Health are not recommending a result-based testing for return to work. That not the strategy. So the answer is the same whether you were to test positive or negative. But I would hope as a district, we are still encouraging testing of students, families, staff, because our actions are based off the numbers and the results. So I'm sort of wondering, when a staff person calls in sick or a child calls in sick, and maybe we're not there yet as to what communication exactly is going to be said, are we recommending to them, you have a fever, you should be tested, or you have a fever, you should call your doctor to see if you should be tested? What are we saying? And then if people are being tested, what is the reporting? How will they know? how will we know if they were tested? How will we know if an employee or a student is positive or negative? Is there any connection there between, wherever they go to get a test? Are we alerted? Are they asked, are you a student and what school do you go to? Or are you employed at a school district? How does that all get connected? So these numbers in our district, we know whether or not there are students.
Shannon, I can talk a little bit about the student process. So if a student presents to the health office, if they are sent from their classroom saying they don't feel well, what's going to happen is that the LPN or the LSN, the licensed school nurse, is going to evaluate that student to decide what their symptoms are and do a quick screening of what does that look like for the student. And they're going to either be sent to the regular health office, or they're going to be sent to what we're calling the care room, which is an area if a student has COVID symptoms, that student will be sent there and their parents will be called to pick them up. And so they'll be waiting there away from any other student that may be out and about walking around, etc., or in the regular health office. And so then as far as the reporting goes, so upon pickup with that parent, so the nurse would be calling the parent to say, your child presents with COVID symptoms. This is what I see. I see a fever, I see some coughing, and they are telling me they can't smell their lunch. And so then they would provide that to the parent and make the recommendation that they take the child to the doctor for a COVID test. At that point, it's the parent's responsibility to manage that piece. We would be tracking in our system the symptoms that the student has as part of their health visit to the health office. We would be tracking those symptoms and then following up with that parent to say, did you receive a positive test? If they're presenting with COVID symptoms, we are asking them to stay home. Whether they have COVID symptoms or they have a fever that's not connected to anything else, we don't want anybody with any illness that could be spread to someone else in school at this time. So you have to be fever-free in order to come back, and you have to be free from all symptoms before coming back. And so we're going to be asked if a student is COVID positive, they're going to be out for the 14 days. And then that's when the fun begins, because then we're going to start tracing any contact that person has had with anybody else. So if they are positive, now we have to go back and say, for the last 48 hours, you have been with this student, this student, this student, and then we have to determine, have they been within 6 feet or closer to students for 15 minutes or more, and that's considered exposure. If they have, then we contact those families to say, your child has been exposed to COVID. And so there is definitely a process in play, and we're collecting all of that information through our Skyward system and our health records. And that's part of that teaching that I talked about on one of our first slides in the presentation too, that we're doing some really deep training with our LPNs and our LSNs to make sure that we have that down, how we're doing that throughout the school system so that we're very consistent and that we have really, really good data on that. What we have decided to do is we've had our technology experts working in the background in Skyward, developing reports. And one of the reports that they have been working on and that we shared at Cabinet the other day is a symptom checklist. And so we're still in the works right now of how this is exactly going to play out, because we want it to be very specific and very clear for families. And so one of the items that we are thinking about is having families check symptoms prior to sending so families would check it for elementary students, and grades 6, so middle school and high school, would be doing it on their own on the app. And so they would check the symptoms list, and it would generate a report for us to say, this student has indicated that they have a symptom of COVID. And so that triggers us then. It would pull up an automatic message to say, you need to stay home. And then that would trigger for us at school to make a phone call to say tell us what's going on, tell us a little bit more. And then we could follow our decision trees from there to figure out what needs to happen with that student. And so we know that one of the things with our school district is if we ask families to do that in the morning prior to school, no matter what age, we're going to get kids that and families that won't be able to respond to that, or they won't respond to it quickly, and then we don't know. They may come to school and they have a symptom. And so what we are going to do is we are going to teach and reteach to make sure that they are following that. And if we get the majority of our students checking it, because this is going to be new learning for all of us, like everyone has to learn to remember their mask every day, because at home they might not wear a mask. And so we have to build their stamina to do this. Same is true for this, that we have to reteach them, or teach them and reteach how to do this, how to go in every day and check their symptoms through the app at home prior to school. They'll come to school, they'll get a temperature screening no matter what door or bus. If they walk, if they ride with a parent, or they ride a bus, they'll have their temperature taken prior to coming into school. And that will give us all of the data that we need in order to make a really good decision about who is in school that needs attention and who is at home that needs our attention too. Are they going to be quarantined? Are they positive? And so we have a lot of work ahead of us, just tracking all of that, but we're up for it. And I think we have a really good system planned ahead of us. Does that make sense, Shannon?
So I love the tracking system. For the younger ages, that's not realistic, but we're going to have the families doing that, but we're putting it into the place, and the older kids can do that. Mm-hmm. That is wonderful. I love to hear that. And these are all really good steps, and I support them. I do, as I mentioned in earlier emails, want us to take it one step further and have if you had symptoms, I'd like to see the 10 days in place. If that's what we're doing for employees, is we're saying you presented COVID symptoms, you are out for 10 days, whether you test positive or negative. We're following CDC on that and that decision tree. I'd love to see that in place for families, that they're out for 10 days from the start of their symptoms. And then just to clarify, you had said something about 14 days. That's for people who have been exposed to positive. We're not asking them to be out for 14 days if they have symptoms. We're asking them to be out for 10 days if they have symptoms, correct?
Okay. Correct. Correct.
So these are all really, really fabulous. I'm just saying I'd like to have us take it one step further and say you're out for 10 days, whether you test positive or negative, because that's what CDC is recommending for return to work. And I would hope, my goodness, that Minnesota Department of Education would recommend that for students. So thank you.
And that is in our employee guide, as you suggested, Shannon. There, just a quick recap of our employee procedures. They'll look really similar. All staff. We've already taught all staff to do a daily check-in form last spring, so they'll get to just do that with a slightly different form this fall as they come back to school. And we had such great compliance with that in the spring. I'm hopeful that we'll see a similar response now. You asked about, getting that test information back from students or staff. And I will have to say that that's not something that we can legally require from students or staff. But we've had very good cooperation. Our staff, when they have gone out with symptoms or when they've gone out to be tested, have been reporting back to us, very, very carefully. And we've been able to have great compliance with that, whether or not they're legally required to do that. I think staff are taking seriously the obligation to keep the community as a whole safe. and they've been really responsible about that. So we'll be tracking that. Our staff will do that check-in form, and they'll get the same kind of response as Carol described for students. They'll be immediately contacted by HR, who will follow our decision trees and take them down to whether they're out for 14 days or 10 days or what have you. Our decision trees suggest that they all be tested if they have had that direct exposure or if they're having symptoms and are concerned about it. So we'll continue to press that testing because obviously that's an important public health factor for our community. And so I think those procedures will serve us well as we go into the fall, and that will give us the staff data that we'll be able to track as we go.
Well, thank you again. This is you have to recreate the wheel. You have to think out of the box. The amount of effort that you guys have put into this is just, you can't see it, in front. People don't realize all the effort and all the details of putting this into place. And so thank you for every little one of these, because they're all important in this process to keep our kids and our staff safe. So thank you so much for all of your efforts.
Shannon, I just want to add for you that I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but this is the decision tree from the Minnesota Department of Health. I keep that by me all the time. I've even put it in a little plastic file to make sure I have that. And the word has it that they're coming out with an updated one as well. And so we're really waiting on that updated information. And while you were talking, Jess Voss, lead nurse, texted me and she said, "Oh yes, tell Shannon we will keep kids out 10 days if that is, if they have symptoms." So rest assured that we are training that way, and we will be following this. This is from the Minnesota Department of Health, like I said, and they work closely with the CDC. And so we will be following all of that.
Thank you all very much. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm good.
Les, you'd be next. Do you have any questions?
I don't really have questions, but I do have a comment. This is an annual thing for me. In fact, it's 2 or 3 times a year. It's allergies. I live on a lake and I have a crazy dog that goes in and out of the water. And so I know people are looking at me, but that it's a natural allergy. Don't have anything other than that, but I just wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you're feeling better later. Monica, do you have any questions?
Yes, well, thank you very much, all of you, for being working so diligent into this plan. I want to ask you all, I see that we are recommending, or the administration is recommending, a hybrid model for distance for this school year, for this period of time. And I was wondering, we have been talking a lot about the change and what things are happening, but I wonder if there is any advantage. And I think that there is also opportunity with everything that we have for changing. And I wanted to ask you if there is, what do you see, what do you expect from a hybrid model of learning, and what things are you looking forward from it?
Lori Posch. Yeah, before Lori starts, I know that a few people have said a couple different things, hybrid model, but I haven't said that out loud yet. So I just need everybody to hear me for a second. You haven't heard the recommendation yet. People have hinted to the recommendation, but you haven't heard it yet. So Lori, can you answer that question, please?
Absolutely, and thanks for asking it, Monica. We are in the business of learning, and whether that's our teachers or it's our students, we are always learning. We're always learning how we can be better at our craft, and we have learned a lot since last spring. As we look at positives, we have heard from many students and many parents and many teachers about the positives that came out of at-home learning. So as we look at continuing to enhance that, as I mentioned before, we're confident that learning doesn't just take place within a school building. So our teachers have become even more experts at using technology as a tool for learning. So whether our students are in class with them or are at home, our teachers have really perfected being able to use technology as a tool. And our students have perfected being able to use that as well to help their learning. So I think when I look at it, I look at that enhancement of teaching, that enhancement of learning that has come out of this. We have always talked about the importance of technology as a tool, but I think that we have really seen the benefits that have come out of that, both for our teachers, but especially for our students. So for me, that's one of the biggest learnings that we can take away. We've really looked a lot at how can we do better at engaging our students in learning. And we know that that looks different for every student. And our teachers have really seen that in the last few months and have been planning for that coming up. Also, communication. We have had that value of communication, frequent communication with our families, with our stakeholders reinforced over and over again. And that's as we talk about, and Shannon, I heard you say, you know, we have a lot of people unhappy. I can tell you that we have a lot of people happy as well. And we have heard so many positive things about our communication, our efforts to reach out, our efforts to listen to our stakeholders, whether they're teachers, students, or parents. And then finally, reinforcing that importance of relationship building, that everything that we do is about relationships, and that learning comes when we have those strong relationships. And that has been reinforced again. So Monica, I think a lot of positives have come out of this. A lot of things we know education will never look the same again. And many of those changes are positives for us.
Can you speak a little bit more about the days that that kids are going to be at school? Is it so? Are we expecting to have more personalized learning because we're having less kids?
Absolutely. Yes. So we do know that, you know, when and if we are in a hybrid model, we will have fewer students in our classrooms at a time. And that will allow our teachers to be able to personalize education even more. I'd say that our teachers do that well already, no matter how many students are in their classroom. But I think all of us would agree that it is easier to do that when we have fewer students in a classroom. And it will be easier to do that when we have that ability to connect with our students virtually as well. Hope that answered it, Monica.
Thank you. Another question that I have, and I don't know for who, will be if we wanted to have kids, or if it's like, let's say if we wanted to have kids at a school full time, like usual, what things would have to be different to comply with guidelines of the guidance for COVID about distancing and all those kind of things? What things we will have to do, and what would be the capacity of the schools to do that?
Monica, I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. And so so I'm just going to repeat it back to you. If schools all students are back and it's all in person, will we go ahead and, if that's the question, then from there, will we implement as much of the social distancing and different opportunities? So just say, will we utilize space as much as possible? Yes. I was speaking to one board member today, and we were talking about, especially like in the fall or the spring, where you would use outdoors as often as possible, or cafeteria or an auditorium. So yes, we'd be trying to spread our classrooms out and our students out. Yes, we would be doing the recommended things of wearing masks and washing hands and things of that nature. So we'll be trying to do that. Those things would be implemented. But in terms of, well, that's how it would be. That's what would happen if you're doing everybody back. But understand, it would be more crowded.
Well, Willie, my question is, like, yes, I understand that we are in a pandemic and there are guidelines about how people needs to be inside and how distance you have, and how you have to keep distance from every student. What I am wondering is that if it's physically possible, if we have the capacity in our schools to do that with everybody there. So if we have enough room everywhere, if we have enough staff to check that everybody is complying with what they need to be compliant, if that is actually a possibility. I wanted to know that.
So first, to answer the first question, do we have enough physical space to be able to do that? The answer is no. Okay. And so that's why we brought the architects and some others in, as you're talking about at the elementary schools, the space study that we conducted. And so to be able to pull off what you're talking about, that's why we got the K through 2 and the 3-4 alternating, and then some students in special education and some EL students. We were able to pull that off in terms of the 50% capacity or the social distancing or the space. Okay. The second part of your question was, help me please.
No, that was just one question. We will have capacity if that was possible to do that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Al, you'd be up next, please.
I think that's should be working now. First off, I want to say congratulations. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, because I can't hear myself.
You're good.
Congratulations on putting together a plan when you were given something essentially impossible to do, and that is to satisfy lots of different people with lots of different views and try to come up with one plan that works for everybody, and there isn't such a thing. It's an impossible task. And whereas, you know, I can work with, as a board member, I can work with the staff and I can accept a single plan. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go and not have any concerns about that plan. And I guess my personal belief is that an in-classroom learning model is the best for students, and all students have a better chance of learning and being kept on track and learning at a faster pace when they're in the classroom with the teacher and they're being directed and they're being watched and the teachers are able to follow exactly what's going on with their work. And lots and lots of reasons why I think that that's the best model. Then I look at what the governor put out as a plan, and he basically said, look at your county COVID numbers, and your plan is going to change based on what those numbers are. And it's going to look different in every school or district in the state. And so I have secondary concerns when comparing, say, district to district. So we put together what we felt was an equitable plan in our district, knowing that there's differences in the schools. Willie?
Al, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you want to, where you're going, do you want to wait until I do the recommendation, which is the next part of the meeting? Or
sure.
No, I'm just throwing that out there.
No, I didn't know where to go with this. Okay. I didn't know if I should do it after this or after you give your plan.
There you go.
I don't know if it really matters because it isn't necessarily directed at your plan, but
okay.
I mean, I feel like we were told in the last meeting that we based our plan or our planning on what we felt would be equitable for the schools in our district. Ever since I've been on the board, we've always set our standards very, very high, and we've always gone out and we've Jeff, were you waving at me?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm gonna close my eyes.
No, my wife is leaving.
I can see all of you. So we've always set our standards very high, and we've worked to bring the top up, and we've done that through, say, talent development and really, really good, I think the best AP courses in the area. And then to provide equity, we have always worked exceptionally hard. And I can think of where we've allocated millions of dollars to extend school days in our priority schools so that we give extra time to students. We've worked really, really, really hard and added a lot of staff and dollars to working with the students that need the most support to give them the support so that we can bring it up. So we're raising the top and we're trying to pull the students who need the supports up to that top so that we have an equitable system. And this time here, it feels a little bit like we're not doing that this time. I'm afraid in a system such as we're putting together, I'm a little bit afraid about the AP courses and the amount of how we're going to challenge those students like we need to, and how we're going to handle talent development in elementary school and identification of those students that are eligible for talent development, and to challenge them and to bring them up. And all being done in 2 school days per week, when we would normally have 5. And I feel really bad for our teachers and for our staff that we have a system or a recommendation put in place that's based on COVID numbers in the counties that changes what we're doing. So we really don't even know what it's going to be from week to week to month, and it might look completely different right across the river, which it looks like it's going to look completely different right across the river. And I don't know what's so important about a river that all of a sudden kids on one side of the river should get 5 days a week in school, or 4 or 5, and our kids should only get 2. And if I go to the Minnesota Constitution, I think that it states, I'm just gonna, somewhere I've got it here, maybe I don't. Well, the Minnesota Constitution states that we are to have a uniform system of public schools. And this governor's order seems to me, I question the constitutionality of it, because it's creating as much as ununiform as possible. We have schools where they're going to school full time. We have other schools where they aren't even going to see the inside of an interior of a school building. And we have other schools where they're going to be there half time. And so taking all that into consideration, that's what we're working with. And I guess we don't really have a choice on any of that, but it's really hard for me to accept that this is a new type of normal. And I really believe that we have to do everything that we can to get our kids back into the schools as soon as we possibly can. So I had a couple of questions earlier, and one, Willie, I don't know if you had a chance to look into it or not, but what our district, instead of being in one county, we're in 4 different counties. One of them, we barely touch it. There's probably a few farmhouses in that county, and it's a metro county, so it's very likely that COVID numbers could spike in that county at some point in time. Do we know how many students attend our district from each of the counties? And is there a reason why we have to use each one of those counties as an equal and take the highest COVID, the highest numbers, and determine our school plan based on those, when in one case, especially that one case, we may only have 5-10 students from that county?
To answer your question, Al, do we know how many students, the student count by county? The answer is yes. You and I talked, when we first talked about that, I think it was this afternoon, have we made that call? Have I got clarification from MDE in terms of how you just asked that question? I don't have that clarification yet, but do we have the first part of your question in terms of the number of students per county? The answer is yes. And then we're looking for the clarification in the second part of your question.
Okay.
Okay.
This other stuff I'll wait until the end. I do have questions on AP classes and on talent development. What are our plans for those courses to make sure that we're offering rigorous programming for those students who are extremely bright and strong performers?
Al, did you say you were holding that question, or did you want Lori Post to talk about that?
No, that one, she can talk about that one now. It was some other questions I had. I'll wait till after you give us the plan.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying. Al, we are just as concerned and we're just as proud of our AP classes and offerings as you are. You are correct. We far exceed any of our neighboring districts in the offerings that we have for our talent development program and our AP classes. We are committed to continuing all of that. So as with any registration, whether it's any year, we look at our student registrations to determine which courses are offered. We have been in conversation with our secondary administrators and counselors and schedulers, and they are looking at all of our students who have applied for the Distance Learning Academy to make sure that we can continue to offer, probably synchronously. So our students who are in Distance Learning Academy, depending on numbers, would take the class, the AP class, with our students who are on site. So looking at some different ways that we can ensure that we continue to offer those. At our elementaries, we are continuing with our school-wide enrichment and our Young Scholar programs. So high importance for us as well.
So there were some comments made earlier on if a student has symptoms, they would be out with symptoms for, say, a 10-day period. What does out with symptoms mean? Does that mean they're out and they're sick and we're not going to deal with them? Or does that mean that they're going to attend distance learning for the next 10 days and they're still going to be expected, as long as they're not, physically extremely ill or something where they can't, but are they still going to be expected to show up, and are they still going to be given work, and so they don't fall behind
Al,
over the course of the year?
That's a great question. And we were just talking about this yesterday on, because we were talking about how do we take attendance for those students. And so we recognize that there will be students who have symptoms but are still able to get online from home. And so that will be our expectation, is if you are feeling well enough to participate, that you will be online participating. And then our next step with that is how do we track that attendance, because the student will be out. We have to do kind of a dual system. The student will be out, but at the same time, they won't be present in front of the teacher. So the teacher would mark them absent, but at the same time, they're going to be present at home. So we're in the process of figuring out that coding, but yes, to answer your question, we will expect that they will be online.
Okay. Staff, are staff in schools on Friday, or is it a work from home day, or?
Tracy.
Yeah, so our agreement, talking with the SEA is and with other staff groups today, was that we really want to prioritize having staff in school for this first month, and then be able to adjust as needed. But for this first month, there's so much collaborating to do. There are so many new things for our staff to learn with each other, with our non-licensed staff, in terms of making sure that we're supporting students at the highest possible level. And I think everybody acknowledges that we can do that more effectively if our staff are in the buildings for that flex day on Fridays, so that we can have that collaboration.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold the rest, Billy, until later. Jeff or Billy.
Okay.
All right. I guess it's my turn. I just want to say I attended one of the town hall meetings last night. My first question is for Tammy. I'm hoping you could make any link that's needed easier to find for those town hall meetings, because I'm not technically challenged, but I struggled to find it last night. Thank you for sending me the link. But if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated by the public. The next one, I guess, is for Ryan, and it's more of a statement and an ask, but could you make sure that any town hall meetings are more secure so certain immature idiots cannot interrupt the important information that we need to share and hear the community's questions about? Because as you all know, that one got rudely interrupted last night. I have a small wheelbarrow full of questions, but they're from pre-K to second grade teachers, so they're not really mine. Some of them have been answered, but this one's probably a Gary question. You talked a little bit about cleaning the rooms, but who will be responsible for sanitizing the rooms and the materials? How much of this will fall on teachers versus custodians? And these are pre-K to second grade. They're in there 4 days a week. That's what their concern was.
Yep. So after the school day, the custodians will go in. They'll do the enhanced cleaning then. Excuse me. In between any transitions during the day, instructional and support staff will need to do that cleaning. We just don't have enough custodians to go around to be able to hit all that. We'll provide the cleaning supplies. We'll provide the gloves. We'll provide directions. And as far as the instructional materials, that would fall on each department or each instructor as well.
All right. Second part of that question was, this is coming from a kindergarten teacher. I know we got special trays with high sides on them and stuff, but she said, how is she going to feed the kids? Because it seems like at the kindergarten level, she has to open every single milk carton. She has to open the apple. Is there any other packaging that we can do in the short term, but do they all need to be individual packaging?
I guess we'd have to look at each menu option. We can sure look at that, but it's my understanding that each of the elementary schools are providing an adult in those rooms, just like it would be in the lunchroom. Some of the lunchroom aides that would be there. So that's typically what work they do in the lunchroom. It will just take place in the classroom.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, it would be nice to hear that. They'd appreciate that. Next one's probably a Marcia question. They're wondering about kindergarten toys, playground, playtime. Who will be getting toys? What will it look like if they have to social distance? Are there any toys left in the classroom?
Good question, Jeff. So yes, students in kindergarten will have access to appropriate learning materials and initiatives. As we know, that's really important to not only kindergarten students, but young learners in general, that they have access to those learning materials, initiatives, and those hands-on materials that are so important to their learning. We have reviewed information from CDC as well as higher ed institutions and medical personnel, and we will be putting together a set of protocols for safe and appropriate use of those hands-on materials to respond to the questions that you're getting and I'm getting and Lori's getting regarding how to do that in a safe way, yet provide the appropriate learning environment for young learners. We believe that students need to engage in learning that way, and so we'll be providing that that direction or providing those protocols to assist teachers.
All right. Thank you, Marcia. Carol, this is probably your question. You talked a little bit about tracking attendance here, and from what I heard you saying was that the teacher would probably mark the student as absent because they're not in the class, but then the district would change that to, hey, they did attend at home, so it wouldn't count against them. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, that's what we're thinking at this time, Jeff. And yeah, we're thinking that we would, if the teacher marks them absent, that we would go in and perhaps use the letter R to indicate remote, that they were in remote learning. We already used the letter V for something else, so we couldn't do virtually. And so that's what we're thinking at this time, but that would be the process. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thanks. Marcia, this one was for you. It's, are we expecting students, kindergartners, to carry their new devices back and forth to school for Flex Fridays? What happens if they get damaged, lost, who is responsible, insurance, those kind of questions. So it might be Gary too, but whoever.
Sure. I'll start us off on that one. So we are collaborating with the technology team and sites to determine what the plan or expectations for device usage in our school and at home will be. And we recognize the investment that the district has made in these devices, but we also recognize the importance of students learning in regard to using this technology as a tool, and the need for devices to be in school so that teachers can work with students to develop those skills. And so, what happens if they get damaged, lost, who's responsible? I will start out, and Gary or Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time of device deployment, families will be able to sign an agreement. They'll be able to have the option to purchase insurance. And insurance is very affordable, and it's tiered for families regarding their economic status. And so that helps in terms of who's responsible. The district will ensure that if it's lost or stolen or some damage, that insurance helps cover that. And that's what I can add. I don't know if Gary or Ryan want to add anything else, but.
All right, thumbs up, Gary. Tracy, many parents are concerned about childcare for their young adults who can't be home alone. What other options, and if they are not tier 1 workers? Good luck.
I can take that one, Jeff. Yep.
All right.
So we're partnering with Boys and Girls Club. They are getting their information ready. What I'd recommend is that folks reach out. Families that have questions, reach out to Boys and Girls Club. Tammy's in the communication loop with Boys and Girls Club. We'll get that information posted as soon as we get it. They are looking at using their clubs, which will have a limited capacity, but their plan is to start with tier 1 workers, but then expand that to others who don't qualify as a tier 1 worker.
Thank you, Gary. Is tier 1 described on our website, or do they have to go out and see what a tier 1 is?
We can get it up there. It's tier 1 is really expanded since it began. When it began, it was just pretty much law enforcement and healthcare providers, and it's expanded to the food industry and education, daycare providers. But yeah, we can get that information posted.
All right. Next question, Carol. When is this deep training for nurses going to happen?
It is scheduled. Let's see. I have a note. August 25th and 26th. And then there'll probably be a little bit more training for all non-licensed staff. Well, there will be training for all non-licensed staff on September 3rd and also September 8th.
All right. Thank you. 2 more. I'll make them quick. Board member Ringsmith made a suggestion last board meeting that we put a lot of the questions that we were being answered for out on the website, and I found that very helpful. Could some of these questions also be added to that list?
Sure.
And
And
Jeff,
then-
we are
yeah.
we are updating it on a constant basis.
Good. It's very helpful. I've got a lot of calls on that one. Last thing, I'm just asking if we could have a Zoom meeting soon for just our pre-K through 2nd grade teachers. They've reached out to me with their concerns, and their concerns are different because they're all in right away. And it seems like some of them are newer teachers too. So if that's possible, I think Marcia's already touched on it. It might happen, right, Marcia?
So let me respond to that. I met with the elementary principals today, and we talked about the needs of our K through 2nd grade teachers. And our plan is to finalize staffing tomorrow. And principals will then be meeting with their teachers. And they recognize that there are some specific needs around those that are going to be staffed in our K2 classrooms. And I believe that they have a much better, they'll be much better able to respond to the questions and the concerns of the teachers, especially they might be particular to a site. And so principals are going to be managing those meetings with K2 teachers.
I wanted to add one thing there because I heard what Chair Polry said, and he didn't say, he also was including pre-K. So he was talking about early childhood also, Marcia.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about the meeting with the elementary, but I know that you've been working with Julie.
Yeah.
I know you've been working with Julie Midas. And so I just want to make sure that you went there also.
Yes, thanks, Willie. Yes, absolutely. Julie is a part of those meetings, and Julie will be having meetings with her staff as well.
All right, I'm done. Any other discussions, questions? Thank you much, everyone, for a great presentation. We'll now move into section 3, our discussion and action items. Tonight we have one action item. It's item A, return to school 2020-21 plan. It's going to be done by Superintendent Willie Jett and maybe some helpers.
All righty. Make sure I'm okay. Good evening, Chair Polreese, members of the board, and also good evening to our oh, thank you, Ryan. And so Ryan is navigating for me. So I'll start over. Good evening, Chair Polreese, members of the Board of Education. Also, good evening to our families, staff, and community members tuning in from home. You've heard updates on the back to school planning being done by our cabinet. And now I'd like to review the recommendations for our return to school learning model and how we will transition between models during the school year. We will be glad to answer any questions you have at the end of this presentation. Next slide. Thank you, Ryan. In review, the information on this slide shows the governor's Stay Safe Minnesota Health Data Matrix that connects county case rates to the required learning models. As you can see, the learning models that schools are able to use are tied to county transmission rates, and we must review the data from all counties we serve. So now, step 1, our learning models will first and foremost be based on the governor's matrix that is informed by county health data. This data is provided each Friday and dictates the baseline of our decision making. We, in turn, will share this data with our community every Friday in my weekly communication to families and staff. According to the governor's executive order, school districts can choose a more restrictive learning model based on county health data, but never make a less restrictive choice. Step 2, each Friday, as we review our 4 counties' health data, we could see either an increase or a decrease in case rates. Sometimes these rates will fall within the bracket that aligns with our current learning model. Sometimes that data will require a change. For example, if any one of our 4 counties' case rates hits the 30 mark, we would be required to transition to distance learning at secondary and remain at hybrid in elementary, according to the governor's matrix. This relatively high case rate means that infections are spreading, and we would need to transition to the more restrictive learning model on that Monday. Now, it is also possible that case rates could decline on any given week. Based on this scenario, on the next Friday, we could learn that all of our counties are now reporting case rates below the 30 mark. This decrease allows secondary students a return to hybrid learning. Now, according to the Minnesota Safe Learning Plan, schools utilizing a distance or hybrid learning model that experience a declining level of viral activity in the school and/or surrounding community, as indicated by county-level case data, may consider cautiously shifting their learning models to increase the number of students learning in person. At the last meeting, we were asked to identify what it would take to trigger a transition to a less restrictive model. Our plan is to monitor the data to ensure case rates either stabilize or continue to decrease for 3 consecutive weeks before we would transition to the next least restrictive model. Why 3 weeks and not 2 or 1? It's to allow stability during the school year and provide time for our large school system and the 742 community to transition between models. Lastly, step 3. Moving forward, we will gather input from families and staff once each trimester to understand their perceptions and experiences with health and safety protocols and academic experiences. But our implementation of learning models will be driven by our 4 counties' health data. Thank you, Ryan. Based on the governor's executive order, so here's our recommendation. Based on the governor's executive order, school districts must announce their plans 2 weeks prior to the beginning of the school calendar, which is when staff return, and that's August 31st. So tonight, our recommendation is that St. Cloud area schools begin the school year, which begins for students on September 8th, in a hybrid learning model. And to be clear, this recommendation is in alignment with the learning model required by the governor's matrix. Again, And to be clear, this recommendation is in alignment with the learning model required by the governor's matrix at this time. To briefly review our hybrid learning model, at the elementary level, grades K through 2 will learn in person Monday through Thursday. Based on the space capacity study completed, we can bring all of our K2 learners in while maintaining half capacity and full social distancing. Grades 3 through 5 will attend in person 2 days and do distance learning 3 days each week. At the secondary level, grades 6 through 12 will attend in person 2 days and do distance learning 3 days each week. And our students who face the most academic challenges, some of our students receiving special education, and some of our multilingual learners, and students experiencing homelessness, will be learning in school 4 days each week. In the hybrid model, grades 3 to 12 students attend in person on an A-B schedule and will be assigned based on last names. Families with last names A through K will attend on Monday and Wednesday. Those are A days. And families with the last name L through Z will attend on Tuesday and Thursday. That's B days. Again, families with the last name A through K will attend on Monday and Wednesdays. That's A days. And families with the last names L through Z will attend on Tuesday and Thursday. That's B days. And Ryan, if you go to the next one, that concludes our recommendation. And do we have questions?
All right, Al, we're going to start with you and reverse the order. Sorry.
Got it. First question. So it's 3 days, and question number one would be, let's say that there's, I brought this up before, but what happens if the governor gives up his emergency powers, or if a court, and there's a number of court cases out there right now looking at whether or not the governor can constitutionally have these emergency powers. If the governor loses his emergency powers, what's our move? What do we do next? Because that would, this plan of his, the Stay Safe Minnesota plan, is put in place through his emergency powers. So that would be essentially, if a court comes out and says that he loses his emergency powers, Stay Safe Minnesota plan would no longer be enforceable, and it would give districts the ability to make choices on their own. Do we have a plan in place, or have we thought about that, or is that something we still need to look at?
Al, that would be something that we need to look at. Have we thought about it, or do we have the answer to that? No. At this moment in time, you know me, and you've heard me say this numerous times, in terms of following the direction of who supposedly is in charge at that moment. And so as superintendent, as a district in the state of Minnesota at this moment, just like all of us, we need to follow the orders that the governor's executive order had. As it relates to if all of a sudden that is removed, that is something that we would have to, that is something at that moment in time, we would definitely now have a conversation. Would I still be considering the health and safety of our community and staff and things like that? Yes, but we would have that conversation then.
Okay. Now I forgot my second question here. I'm gonna have to, you'll have to come back to me. I can't remember that second question on that. And I can, some of these I've already got answers to, so.
Okay.
We move on.
Monica, you'd be next.
Do I only have one chance to say something, or you're gonna go back?
Give us your best shot now, and you can always come back later for a second round. We got all night.
So I have a question. When you were looking at the plan, Willie, when I was looking at the plan, that you're separating the kids for the last name of the for the letter of their last name, and I was wondering if you have plans to switch that at some point, to switch in the days that they will have, like, I don't know, like
So Monica, and you might not be saying what I'm about to say. There's another school of thought that somebody would say, switch the letters that you use so that kids are exposed, or kids can have that they might have relationships with other kids in the alphabet. And so, yes, that has been given some consideration. From a scheduling standpoint, from a bus and a transportation standpoint, we know that we need to go with what we have in terms of the A through K and the L through Z, I believe it is. Will there be some modifications that have to happen because a family might have siblings that have 2 last names or something like that? Yep, you're going to see some of that. And yes, there is going to be some, there might be some balancing, and you might see a few names different as it relates to the alphabet because of just balancing out class size or rosters and things of that nature, or course requirement or course offerings. But in general, Monica, if you were asking, are we going to switch up the A through K, and then the next time maybe it's you take the middle of the alphabet and then you take the end and the 2 ends and combine them to make sure that students get a chance to see other students and develop those kind of relationships or keep them. At this point in time, that's problematic.
Well, you answered my second question that I hadn't asked, but thank you. What I was asking this time actually was, if I am my last name is Segura, short, so I get SS. So I will always be going to school the Tuesdays and Thursdays, or there are times that I get to go Mondays and Wednesdays.
Oh, okay. I know that we as a cabinet did a study in terms of making sure how many days each student would attend. And I'm not sure if I'm looking at the screen who came up with that, but I know that within that system, one of the breakdowns in alphabet was like 69 days. Don't quote me on that. I'm making this number up. And the other one was like 68. And so we had figured that out to make sure that they were basically even in terms of instructional days.
Yep, still that's not what I'm asking. I want to know if I get to go always in the same days.
The answer is yes, you do. The same days. If you were Monday, Wednesday, we're trying to be consistent. Monday, Wednesday. If you were Tuesday, Thursday, we're trying to be consistent. Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay. The other question that I have is, when do you evaluate changes if cases go lower? Like, how often do you evaluate if you're going to change to a less restricted system?
That was in my explanation when I talked about we will look every Friday, and then we will look for 3 straight weeks. And so our recommendation is 3 straight weeks. And then from there, based on where we fall in that matrix, if it's stable or it decreases during those 3 weeks, then it would be that following Monday. That's when we would move to a less restrictive environment.
And also, I hear you saying that this is strictly based in the recommendation of the governor and following the case numbers. The last board meeting, we were talking a lot about survey data and getting a more conservative approach. Can you speak a little bit about how is that process? If there is are we going to do surveys every time that we evaluate in this and figure out that approach, or how are you going to measure kind of the comfort level of the staff and families?
So in the recommendation, you saw that we were going to go by the governor's data, the matrix, after 3 weeks. So we're sticking to numbers. Then on step 3, I believe on the slide that was before this, it talks about when we would be talking or when we would survey families and staff. And that was about the health protocols and things of that nature, and also the academic performance. So that would be once a trimester.
All right, so let me repeat what you're saying to see if I'm understanding. So can we have changes in the model that we are following? If so those changes may happen every 3 weeks, but at the end of the trimester, we're going to be surveying people. So we might have changes even if we haven't surveyed people. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. And so I'm going to try to say it one more time. So we're going to look and to go to the least restrictive model. That was the question that you had asked. That's how you started it out. The least restrictive model, we will be looking for 3 consecutive weeks. Okay. But the survey And so that's what we're basing our decision on, is the information that comes from the governor's matrix and health data, okay? The survey that we'll be talking about, asking our families and our staff, it will be to understand the perceptions of health and safety protocols and their academic experiences. That will be once every trimester.
Monica, can I try? Willie, let me rephrase the question. I'm going to see if I can kind of get what Monica's looking at. If the model changes, or if the data says we should change or could change, will the parents and community have any input on if we change?
So you're hearing our recommendation. So thank you, Chair Polry. You're hearing our recommendation is to base it strictly off of numbers and health data. Okay. Now, we all know that, and Ryan's bringing me a charger, so I'm saying thank you to Ryan because, of course, my computer's about to die. Oh, this one. Give me 1 second, folks. This one.
Is that what you were
Oh,
kind of shooting
Ryan, I
for?
need to this one. It's the same with this. Hold on 1 second, folks. Chair Polries?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You want me to
say that question
sing
one
a
more
song?
time? Because I'm ready now. I'm ready now. So I got my charge up. I'm ready to go. Okay.
All right. Take it away, Willie Jet.
Okay. So the way I understand the question, Monica is asking, Chair Polris is asking, is the staff or faculty or parents, are they going to have a say-so? Is their response, is the survey, if all of a sudden the staff or the parents or the community is telling us that they are not comfortable? That is the question. Is that correct, Chair Polris and Monica?
Well, I don't know if they are telling you or not telling you that, but I see different timelines for when you're surveying parents and where you're making decisions about changing the model. So I thought that if you're not asking, I mean, they don't have a chance to say anything, but they will have a chance. They will have to approach you, but you won't be getting those answers if you are changing the model. Sorry, are you not?
I understand the question. I understand the question. And the bottom line is the way that we're making the decision is based on the numbers, and it's based on the health data, and it's based on the governor's matrix. In terms of the survey, yes, we're asking that question on a trimester basis. We are all members of this community and public figures. And so if people are in a outrage or if they have concerns, they send it to you as the board and to me as the superintendent and others. They send it to you in community input. They send us emails, they send us text messages, and they make phone calls. So people will have a chance always to communicate with you, the school board, and us as the district administration. But our recommendation tonight is to make the decision based on health data on a 3-week moment. And then, I gotta make sure I say that, on a 3-week moment. And then that's when we would change to a more or a least restrictive model. Less restrictive model.
All right. And also you said that, and I think I'll also ask it, but I want to ask it again in a different way. Our recommendation today is based on the numbers of the worst cases of all the counties that we touch. So this moment we will have a recommendation based on numbers from Sherburne County. Is that correct? And that will make us different than Sartell, Sauk Rapids, Pocori, and all those districts around? Is that what is happening?
So our decision is based on our 4 counties. And yep, Al was talking about Wright County, Benton County, Sherburne, and Stearns. Okay. Our neighboring districts, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sauk Rapids is Benton County, I believe. Sartell, I think is, don't quote me.
Benton and Stearns.
Benton and Stearns, okay. Yep. But for us, yes, we are Stearns, Sherburne, Wright, and Benton. And so, yes, we have to go by the county with the highest number. And that's what Al was asking for. Al was talking about the clarification, because if all of a sudden, just say I think Al and I were talking earlier today, and he was asking to get clarification from MDE. If all of a sudden Wright County only had, 15 students or a small number of students, or do we have the capability to make our decisions based on our other counties? And that's what I responded to Al earlier this evening, saying we're looking for clarification with that. But as of right now, we've been told that we need to go with the highest county within your district.
Thank you, Willie.
You're welcome.
And I had something else, but later.
Okay.
Last
And Monica,
But
that is the reason when people are looking at our neighboring school districts, and I think that's what Al was getting to, or at least he was touching on that. And he talked about the river, I believe. There's a difference. Okay. In our district, we have the 4 counties, and yet somebody who's our neighbor can do something different than us. And there's some inequities with that, but that's what we're trying to address.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Superintendent Jett, we talked earlier, and probably the only one in the room who's had a job that required life-death decision-making. And I'm concerned about Al's question because I didn't think about it before. And let me preface it with this. I made the assumption that you put together that team that you have, and you guys came up with a plan that essentially is based upon the health and safety of students and teachers. And that the governor's executive order, if he were to order everybody back to school because he doesn't care, and there's probably some officials around that might order that, I don't know. I'm assuming you wouldn't do that based upon what the situation looks like right now.
Correct.
Okay, so in the event, and I think Al's point is a good question. In the event, if we're looking at 10,000 students from up in the air somewhere, that's our concern. And so how the numbers develop inside of that shell of 10,000 students is pretty critical to, I think, how we ought to be making decisions. And so if we're having difficulty inside of our school, but one of those other counties is so low that it allows for something else to happen, I'm assuming we still look at the health of our students. So the question about the plan we have, it is either your plan, the plan of your staff, and our plan, which I can buy into, but I'm not buying into it's the governor's plan. I mean, you folks need to own this. If it is yours and it's what you agree with, and you can, and you're willing to make that decision and say this is based on the health and safety of our students, then you got my full support.
And to answer that,
go ahead.
Are you asking me that question?
Asking the question.
With unequivocally, if that's the right word, I can't even get that out of my mouth. As a district administration, as a superintendent, this is our recommendation. Are we following the governor's matrix? The answer to that is yes. But this recommendation, we own it. We came up with it. We've sat since there's hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours that have gone into developing this plan. This is ours. We stand completely behind it.
Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Shannon, do you have any questions?
I have one question. Can I get a clarification on our ability intentions to social distance in the K2? Did you say this evening that K2 will have social distancing? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes. So the classrooms are being set up in a way that social distancing will occur physically. We know that with young learners, we're going to have to do some teaching around what does it look like when we engage in play and we're outside at recess and things like that. And teachers will be teaching, modeling, and practicing that to the best of their ability. Then we will have students, social distance. And we know that that's not going to be perfect because they are young learners, but we are going to teach the expectations and hope children understand what that means and why we need to do that. And then the room is physically set up to social distance.
Okay, so.
Shannon?
Yep.
And so by bringing in the folks, when we did the space study, we have the physical space within a building to bring in K2 and then our 3-4 on an alternating basis, and to be able to have enough space in the building to provide that social distancing that you're talking about.
Okay, so I just want to flip over because why I'm confused is, and maybe I just need a clarification on our website's frequently asked questions. When it says that during in-person learning, buses and classrooms will be full and the capacities of social distance will be severely limited. Is that referencing K or pre-K 12 full in-person learning? Because what I hear you saying is in this mixture where we have K through 2 in-person learning, social distancing may be challenging, but we wouldn't be describing it as severely limited.
Correct. And so Shannon, to answer your question, Shannon, when they say in person, okay, according to the 3 learning models, when they say all in person, all learners, or in person for that level, so just say at elementary, if you brought all of our students back at capacity, okay, that's when that's when our buildings don't have the physical space at the elementary level to be able to provide them.
All right. I understand. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zach, do you have any questions? Natalie, you'd be up next, please.
Yeah, so I liked where Shannon was going with that question because I kind of had that same thing. So what concerns me is, if the cases get low enough and we go back into all in-person learning and it's only elementary that doesn't have the space, would we be social distancing at 6 through 12 but not K through 5? I know that the answer to that is no, but that's just kind of where I'm going. Like I know that social distancing wouldn't be happening in that model. Is that basically what we're saying? That if it's all 10 and if it's below 10 on the case rates and we all go back, it's just as if COVID never happened? Yes.
The answer is yes, our students will be going back. I'm not going to say it would be as if COVID didn't happen, but I know that's not exactly what you mean. And so would we, have the hand washing and try to do as much social distancing as possible and wear masks and things of that nature and go through all the different protocols that Tracy and Carol and everybody talked about with the nurses and all that, the decision-making matrices? Yes, all that would still be happening. But no, our students would be back at capacity at the elementary level.
Okay. Just for clarification, I know this actually belonged in the last questioning session, but are we saying, Lori, that AP classes are 100% for sure? If you signed up for one, you will be able to do that even if you're in DLA and you are doing synchronous learning?
Again, that's dependent on the overall number of students that register for that AP class. And that's the same whether we are in a regular school year or in this school year. It's all based on the number of students. So there are years when we're not able to offer certain classes, whether it be AP or something else, because of low registration numbers. And that would be the same this year as well. But we will combine Distance Learning Academy and in person to get that overall number.
Got that. Okay, wonderful. How about what if a family decides that they want to be in Distance Learning Academy in a month? What would that conversation look like?
I'm trying to get off. Yep. Okay. And so others were getting ready. I could see they were getting ready to jump in there. And so it's just like in all of our, in whether it was this year, last year, the year before, when parents have a question or a request, they can always make that request to the district office, to their, well, first to their school, then it comes to the district office, and we evaluate that on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Superintendent Jett. My last question is in regards to the families getting notified of the change, either to a more restrictive or less restrictive model. I understand that, I think I understand that a more restrictive model could be like a right now thing based on the thing you were talking about with the chart you were talking about with the different pods of 5+. But in a less restrictive model, you're saying 3 weeks that you're going to watch it, but then how many days, or will it be a week that you say, oh, on Friday next, not this coming Monday, but next Monday we're starting? Or how long will parents have to kind of redo their schedules, I guess is what I'm saying. It's my parent hat coming out.
Yep, parent hat coming out. Thank you for the question. And so when that comes out that Thursday night, Friday, and we publicize that, of course, we would like to start school that Monday with everybody back. At the same token, we know that at that moment, we now got to get furniture back in the buildings. We got to get desks back in. We have to plan a couple things. So that could take us a day or two to get all that done. There has to be you'd have that weekend that would happen, and most likely you're going to need that first Monday or Tuesday to be able to kick it off full.
Okay, so maybe 3 to 5 days is what you're saying.
Potentially, we'd be working around the clock with the weekend and all that kind of stuff. Get everybody coming back into school as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think the last thing I would say was, thanks for working as hard as you do. You always work this hard, but this is just on like crazy treadmill hard. So my parent hat says I don't want anyone to go anywhere. I just want them to all stay in their own little place. But I think we are taking our cues from our leadership, from you guys, and then also from state leadership. And the thing that gives me the most comfort, if there's anything right now, is that this is all run by Minnesota Department of Health. I am not an expert in a pandemic. And that's the only thing I keep coming back to, is that this is what the health experts say that we need to do, so we need to do it. So thanks for answering all the questions.
You're welcome.
Al, you'll be next. Thank you, Natalie.
One thing, Willie, if you're waiting 3 weeks, wouldn't you have time to start doing, so you'd be able to anticipate, because you're waiting for the third reading, so you'd be able to anticipate some of that, so it wouldn't have to all happen within 1 or 2 days. I would think that you could bring some of the things back, anticipating that it's going to be good news.
Yep.
Question is so if I'm a student that's going Tuesday and Thursday, or I'm a student that's going Monday and Wednesday, how do activities look and work, and what are the schools going to look like in the evenings, and what type of rules, regulations, all of that, what's our process for activities?
So I know that's either Adam Holm. If he's there, I can't see him on the screen.
He's here.
Is he there?
Yep.
Adam, you got that one?
Yeah, Al, we're hoping to get all of our students as busy as possible. So when the bell rings, they go to one of their clubs, their fine arts, out to the practice fields, and but we're always going to follow the MDH guidelines, practice our social distancing, and there's a tracking system that each activities coordinator is following, and we have screeners for when the students that aren't in school that day, they come to school, they must be screened. But each program is going to set up things that work for them. And just like our middle schools, they're looking at like the plays. Can we do smaller plays? And, hats off to the middle school principals for all the things that they've been coming up with and throwing out new ideas that they can not only do in person, but digitally. But we want our students busy. We want them involved in activities because we know they're going to have higher attendance, higher GPAs, and they're going to feel good.
And band and orchestra the same? How would we handle band practices, orchestra, choir?
Lori Coach?
We're working with our music teachers and our music lead right now. I have also reached out to MDE and local experts who have served on some of those committees. We are committed to band and orchestra. The piece about can our kids sing, can they play instruments, those are the details that we're working out, and our music teachers are trying to decide what they'll do in person with the students and what they'll have them do at home. But we are committed to our music programs across the board, continuing and growing.
Thank you.
All right, Monica, we're coming back to you.
Thank you, Jeff. Following up the last thing that you were saying, Lori, I wonder if do we have any capacity to do some type of a studio singing or a studio playing and having students kind of alone or in very small groups in kind of in a studio thing and seeing them from someplace else. Is that a possibility? Do we have anything like that?
Yeah, and that is one of the things that our music lead and our music people have been talking about is how can we have our students be in smaller groups. What we do know is that no matter what, they need to be social distance. So they need to stay at 6 feet apart. So we have to look at the rooms that we have available, doing a small ensemble. In a lot of cases, doesn't place our students at 6 feet apart with that social distancing. But I know that our music teachers, and they did this already last spring, were able to do some things online where students would record some pieces online, submit it. So they are very creative, and I know that they will solve that for us.
Thank you. I wanted to know, Willie, if you can share a little bit more about, or anybody, I'm wondering about teachers and staff, and then how has been that balancing about, I mean, people can say or can talk about the level of comfort that they have going back or asking for being present or being there or not being there. So how are you balancing that? Like, do you have enough teachers to be present when they need to be present? Do they all feel comfortable being present? I think that does it was.
So Tracy undid her mic, but I'm going to jump in before she goes there. And so I think our teachers are just like the community. People have apprehension. These are unprecedented times. And teachers, parents, community members, people have questions about their health, their safety, their loved ones. And so I don't think, I'm not going to just say it's teachers, I'm talking about non-licensed staff also. People have those questions and they are expressing that. And Tracy and others are in meetings and we're assuring and we're going through the proper protocols and things that we're going to be doing. I'm sure Tracy's going to go into that in a minute. But do I think there's this wonderment? There's no question. And we've had conversations. We've been meeting with the different bargaining units. And with that, I'm going to hush because Tracy's going to go ahead and just give you all the details to that one.
Right. Well, I share Willie's statement that there's apprehension, of course, across all of our employees. You know, all of us are trying to make sense of this new world we're living in. And I think people are appropriately cautious and concerned about what it means to come back together this fall. On the other hand, we have enormously dedicated staff, both teaching staff and our non-licensed staff. And this is their world. They love being in these schools. I have a son who's a paraprofessional. He said, "You can't make me stay home again. I need to be at school. I need to be able to see the kids." And I think that is, you know, true for many of our staff that are concerned and yet anxious to be back and in connection with our students. So we've been meeting with all of our bargaining units, as I've said, and I think we have high cooperation and commitment from those groups to be able to do the work that we need to do for our students and our families. We have provided those outlets for those that have real medical concerns. And so I'm really happy to say that we've been able to accommodate all of our teachers that have those serious medical conditions. And now as we start to staff the non-licensed staff, because we basically had to restaff everything. And so before you can offer that accommodation, we have to know what the employee's assignment is. So we're almost through the licensed staff again, work that we did over 4 months, we've done in the last 4 days. And so that process is done, and staff have been accommodated if they have those serious medical concerns. And we'll do the same process now with our non-licensed staff. And I'm confident that we support that have the most serious medical issues and concerns. Others are going to be able to request transfers into the Distance Learning Academy, and we have kind of voluntary seats for those as well, because there are those employees that, you know, clearly meet the threshold of the governor's order, where he identifies those 7 serious medical conditions that put you at increased risk. And then there are others that say, I don't have those conditions, but I have concerns, and here they are. And they may not be right on point, but they're legitimate concerns. And so that will be our next layer to try to accommodate as well. But again, I'm confident that our employees are ready to come back and that they're feeling supported by all that we're doing in the district. I've gotten just from every one of our different bargaining groups and members directly emailing all of us, you know, to say thank you for the hard work and the way that we're taking all of their needs into consideration. And so will people come back without any worries? Probably not, but we'll be fully staffed and ready to support all of our students and families.
Thank you. I also have an unusual question to ask, but I really want to ask, and I want to ask to everybody, but I know that there is a large group of people, so I like to hear from Lori Putman, Lori Podge, Marsha, and Tracy, very especially, and Gary, I mean, how are you feeling?
I'll start. I'll start us out. I think as Tracy said, there's, you know, those apprehensions, there's those wonderings. When I think about how I personally am feeling, I'm excited for the year. I feel like we as a team, as a cabinet team, but also a team as a district and as a community, have really thought through every possibility, everything that we can think through for our staff and our students. So at this time of year, I always get excited about a new school year, and that excitement is still there for me. I think I can speak for all of us. We're probably tired and feeling tired because we have, as Willie said, put in hours and hours and hours, and we do it because we're committed to the staff and students in this district.
Monica, to answer your question, I feel 2 things. I feel lucky and I feel confident. I feel lucky because I have the privilege of being part of this decision-making team. And so, well, as Lori said, I think we were all tired. I am fortunate to know the hours that have gone into this work and the number of conversations that have happened with families, with students, with staff, with administrators, and being part of all of those conversations lets me feel confident that we have made the very best decisions that we can, because there have been millions of decisions in really unprecedented times. And I, you know, as a mom, I've got 2 kids heading back, and I am really grateful that they're going to get the chance to go back into a school in what I feel very confident in a safe way, and get some time to see their family, their friends, see their teachers. You know, I've never had. I'm just so excited to have a 14-year-old boy who is eager to go back to school, and I you know, and that's because, you know, I truly believe we have put together a really good plan. I would even venture to say the best that we could possibly do.
So I'll go next. How am I feeling? I am feeling grateful and I'm feeling confident. I am confident in this plan. I believe that with all of the wonderful heads that are part of our team that we have, as Lori said, put together the best possible plan that we can, given the information we have at our hands right now. I'm also incredibly grateful because of who I get to work with on a daily basis, at the cabinet level, at the district level, and at the site level. We have amazing leaders. We have amazing teachers. We have amazing paraprofessionals. We have just amazing everybody. And I think back to spring, and I think back to how our nutritional staff and our transportation staff and our childcare workers, how everyone has responded to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our families and our students. And I also am grateful for how we care for the students and the staff and for each other. And so it's, yeah, I'm confident, I'm ready. I keep telling principals that we're ready, we got this. And, you know, we're just eager to get the school year started.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like Marcia. I'm feeling blessed. I look at the leadership in the departments that I oversee: buildings and grounds, technology, nutritional services, transportation, and I've got leaders that have expertise. And every time I talk to them, I just come away with the feeling that they've got this. They're in it. They have a plan, and that makes me feel confident. I look at some of the emails that we've all received from the community and from teachers, the support and the thanks. I think that we're very fortunate to have people that will point out when they feel supported. I look around the screen and look at my fellow cabinet members, and I feel blessed that I know they always have my back. That's very reassuring. And as you heard the plan tonight, I think I can speak for all my colleagues. We feel blessed that we have the superintendent that we do at the helm, being the playmaker and guiding us through this. So.
I would echo all of that. I will say that I feel really proud to be a part of this team. Most of these folks around this meeting group are professional educators. I wandered in here from law firm work a dozen years ago, and I will say it's just a privilege to work with all of the leaders in this district. It's amazing to watch the extraordinary commitment of educators to the work that they do, and it's like they can smell the start of the school year in the air about the first week of August, and they all start getting that excitement on. And so I think that powers everybody through these very difficult times. And I've watched our principals step up and have to solve really complicated problems inside their buildings. And you know, without exception, everyone has just stepped up to the plate to do that work. I was really proud today when our business rep from SEIU complimented us in our labor meeting and said she's using us as an example as she goes around to other districts saying, well, have you thought of this? Well, have you thought of this? Well, St. Cloud has this all worked out. You should try their ideas. And so that makes me think that we're on it and getting it done. And we may be ahead of some of our other districts out there in the state. So that's all testament to the work that this team has done. And I think the complementary gifts and skills around that cabinet table really make this work a pleasure. So we're ready, and I'm excited to be supporting staff as they return.
Thank you. And I also wanted to hear from Carol Potter. I didn't have her on my screen, so I didn't mention it earlier.
Well, when all of this COVID craziness started in March, our student services team came up with a mantra, and we made screensavers with be calm, be connected, and be consistent. And we really have tried to live that throughout, and we've had to remind ourselves often to continue to be that throughout the summer, continue to be calm, continue to be consistent, and continue to be connected, because we know once we're all running in many different directions, we can lose that connectedness and not all be following the same path. And so I 2 weeks ago, if you would have asked me this question, I would have said, oh, I'm not so sure that we're going to be ready, because there were just so many pieces to put in place. But now I feel more confident, especially this week, yesterday and today. I feel like, okay, now we're getting to where we need to be, and it feels much more realistic to me, to be ready for school to start. And I think, collectively, as everybody has mentioned, that we really couldn't manage all of that if we couldn't rely on each other. All of our pieces, as you saw in our presentation tonight, all of the different departments, we all overlap in everything that we're doing. Tracy's hiring licensed teachers. Well, in student services, we're hiring licensed teachers, and she's working with non-licensed staff, and we're working with non-licensed staff. And so all of the instructional pieces overlap, and so we have so much coordination to do, and we really couldn't ask for a better team to make that all happen. The commitment to work together and to provide each other what they need in a timely manner is really, really great. So I'm very grateful for all of that. So thank you for asking, Monica.
Thank you very much, all of you, to answer. And I said I wanted to hear from everybody, but that will take the rest of the night, so I will let it go. Then one thing that I haven't heard much about is, I don't know if you can say something briefly, is from Adam Holm about what is it, community ed. So what's happening with community ed?
Yep, so we're slated for a full slate of classes with online registration, so we can be flexible. We took a suggestion from our committee, Al Dahlgren, and we're putting out a nice PR flyer so the community knows that we're there for them, and we're going to have a bunch of offerings, and that'll be coming out in the fall. And Adult Basic Ed is going to have as many or more classes that we did last fall, but it's going to be hybrid, and it's going to follow the district model, but we're also going to have a learning academy for our students that can handle that piece as well. And then we're still waiting to hear from a couple of our community partners out in St. Joe and La Cruz about using their facilities and offering classes as well.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate all the work that you have put on this, and I am looking forward for this new model. I have the same concerns that I'll have, and I figured everybody else, about equity and what is going to be different. However, different than Al, I do have hopes for the hybrid model, and I don't necessarily think that. I mean, I'm hoping that actually could be a better system, that it could be working better for our students. I'm looking forward to see students in small classrooms, and even having one day off, how that day off could look as learning, and how teachers that are teaching distance in that day off are being able, I guess I'm not sure how that will work exactly, but how teachers are going to be able to keep engaged the students in the day that they're not at the school, and having that high social interaction and not social interaction may actually be a benefit to many of students. So I'm looking for how that's going to be. I know that there are many challenges for families, and there is a lot of change for families that go through. And I am concerned about that change too often. So you have heard me asking repeatedly, when are you going to change the system if conditions change? And I am concerned about not giving enough time to anything to work out to when you have to change again. And I'm concerned about hearing you, Superintendent Jett, when you said, if we have to go back to normal, we'll have the weekend to get back everything and speed up in 2 days and get everything back in the schools, and then it will be as it was before. I know that you haven't completely fully thought about that, but I am really concerned about changing things, and I don't know that things are going to be how things are going to look like, and maybe I just worry too much, but but that's a concern of mine, that we don't have like a point that we're going to look like. I will like much better if you, instead of telling me every 3 weeks we're going to look at this, you would tell me we're going to look at it every trimester, or something that will give people kind of a lesser anxiety and knowing that this is going to be working for this period of time. And then people have the possibility to embrace the change or to really hate it. But then thinking in the change too often is very difficult to actually embrace it. When I came to this country, I received a class that it was about cultural shock. And when they were telling me about cultural shock is that when we come to a different country, we have these first weeks or could be a month. It's a period of time of excitement. It's a high excitement that happens. And then there is a time that after that the excitement happens and you start looking at the problems. You start noticing the change. You start missing home. And then you have a really big down. And that is another period of time. And then after that period of time, you start kind of accommodating what's good and what's bad. And then when that happens, then you start adapting. I'm pretty sure that every change, not only me coming to this country, will have the same things. So if we don't have enough time, then you won't be able to move from excitement or looking at what's different to getting sad and depressed, or maybe you just get stuck in the sad of depressed because everything that you miss from the past, but then you won't have time to adapt. So I am concerned about those velocity of changes because of that. But I'm really proud of what you have been doing and what you have been working about. And thank you very much for all that.
All right, Al, it looks like you have a follow-up question.
I do. I haven't heard much about ALC and what's going to be happening with the ALC this fall, if it's going to look just like the high schools or if there are different protocols being put in place for that school.
I can jump into that one. The McKinley will be following the same health and safety protocols. They are going to have a slightly different bell schedule than either TAC or Apollo, but it's designed specifically for the learning needs of that community. And Principal Johnson has been working closely with his leadership team to be moving in concert on any decisions that are being made there. And if you have not checked out the beautiful grounds, please take a moment to do so. Just had to get that plug in.
I have seen them.
They're great.
Are they going to be doing? They're going to be doing an AB model also, or?
They are. They're going to be doing more class periods during the day, however, because they have fewer students and are able to pod a little more closely than is ever possible at our mainstream high schools.
About students that would be in, say, the chemical dependency programs and have daily interaction? Are they still going to be going on a daily basis, or is some of that changing?
That will be, I think that would fall probably under the category of our students maybe with the most challenges. And so certainly we are making adjustments for our students who face significant either academic and learning challenges or social emotional challenges. So they would be have access to those services on a more frequent basis.
Then as long as we're at it, McKinley and, or not McKinley, Roosevelt and Riverwoods, would they be doing the same types of things, or are they going to be looking different?
They will be. Instructionally, they will look the same. They will follow the high school schedule. So at Riverwoods, we have our middle level, level 4. And then at Roosevelt, we have our high school and we have an elementary section. So elementary will be following elementary and high school will be following high school. Their schedule of the day has changed slightly just due to the tier 3 transportation pieces. And so they'll be starting a little later and ending a little later, but throughout their day, they'll have the same amount of hours in their day, and they will be following instructionally the same patterns as the other schools will. Recognizing that those students need some regular breaks. So we were building that into the day as well and building in transitional options too. Thanks for asking, Al.
Tracy, what about meal services on Friday? And food service employees?
And I think that might be Gary.
I had to get to my break. Yeah, meal service on Fridays. I'll let Gary talk about the meal service, but in terms of the food service employees, we're moving several of our employee groups to 4-day work weeks. They'll be preparing extra meals to be able to send home with the kids for their off days, their alternating days. And so they'll both be preparing meals for the kids at school that day and then also preparing the take-home meals. And so they'll need a little longer schedule. Our full-time cooks may stay on a 5-day rotation, but those other parts of the nutritional services staff may switch to that 4-day rotation to support that because we won't need as much support on Fridays.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that we believe that getting the meals in the kids' hands by the end of the day will actually get more food to kids that need it. And so on Mondays and Tuesdays, when kids are in the AB mode, they would get 1 bag to go home, possibly 2 meals, breakfast, lunch for the next day. And then on their Wednesday, Thursday, they would get meals for 2 days so that they could take those home. And like Tracy said, we'll probably have some staff splitting their hours over 5 days because there's going to be a fair amount of record keeping and ordering and those types of things we'll need to do on Fridays.
All right, you good, El? All right, I'll go on with my questions. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask all the executive directors because we have a great team. So I'm going to take some of tonight's time. Dr. Sylvia Huff, how do you feel?
I would echo a lot of the sentiments that my colleagues have already shared tonight. The first adjective that comes to mind for me is just excited. This will be my 5th full year in the district, and it's hard to believe that it's gone that quickly. And so just thinking about the start of the school year, and I always look forward to just everyone coming back and the kickoff and knowing that things will look different this year, differently this year because of the circumstances that we're under, but still being able to feel that energy, even in a different model, and seeing the enthusiasm from everyone is really what keeps me going and keeps me invigorated because I can't lie, just like everyone else shared, I am definitely tired too, but I get my energy and rejuvenation from being around the group that is on this screen, and then also just getting to check in and having conversations with families and students, and getting the work done. So just excited and ready and willing to just continue to do everything that we have outlined and make sure that we are continuing to uphold our standards no matter what the pandemic throws at us.
Thank you. Adam Holm?
I feel just fortunate. I mean, every day I get to come to work and knowing that our job is to make sure every student, no matter how old they are, whether they're 72 or 4, maybe 3, get to come to school and have a smile on their face, and our job's to make that happen. And it's nice going into 3-hour cabinet meetings knowing that our leader, our quarterback, our coach, he sets the bar high. And then right when you think you're there, he raises it and says, what can we do to make it even better? And that's fun because we don't want to be complacent. And as you look around this room, nobody ever is. But when you get challenged to reach higher and higher, it just makes your job exciting and very fortunate. And I love getting calls from cabinet members saying, what can we do here? How can you make this better? That's why I just so fortunate to have a position in St. Cloud Schools.
Thank you. Amy?
So again, like others have said, I'll echo a lot of what people have said about just the collaboration on the cabinet team, and all of our administrators. You know, there's a lot of decisions that we all have to work together, and you know, often there's not an easy or a best solution, and both, you know, every party is tending to have to compromise in some way, shape, or form, and everyone's really just come to the table with we're one district with one goal, and you know, we're all in this together, and we have to come to common ground and reach a solution, even if it you know, in a perfect world may not be the way we have to do things. So yeah, just very fortunate. I don't know if some of my colleagues in other districts could say the same about just collaboration and the strength of their teams. So very, very blessed to be working with all of these people.
Thank you, Amy. Tammy?
Well, thank you. I, of course, will echo everything that's been said about collaborating on this executive team, because the synergy is what makes all of this possible. And then I will say Sylvia stole my word, which was excited. I'm actually really, really excited about the start of the school year. I'm a person who likes change. I'm a person who loves to innovate, be visionary, and look at all the possibilities. And I think someone on the board said it tonight. There's a lot of opportunity. There are a lot of exciting possibilities that are ahead of us now that maybe we wouldn't have thought of if we hadn't been put in this challenging environment. So Sylvia and I, excited.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. Mary Kusterman.
You know, you might be just watching us on TV.
Mary, you can't hear us? You got lucky. All right.
Don't forget, Chair Polreese?
Yes.
We have Ellen Stewart.
Oh, yeah. You're not on this list, Ellen. Ellen Stewart. There you are. Tell us your thoughts, Ellen.
Thank you for that. I think the word that comes to mind for me is accomplished. You know, I am the new kid on the block, but I'm also a systems thinker, you know, thanks to Peter Singhi. So this is my wheelhouse. I'm really excited and amazed at how all of the pieces that were given to us, and we were able to, you know, formulate a comprehensive plan. I echo what Adam said, having a leader that is not satisfied with, great. There's a saying that when excellence is in sight, good is never enough. And I believe that that's sort of how Willie looks at us and pushes us. And it also speaks to the talent, gifts, and skills of Cabinet. I sit in awe and learn and am just amazed again at the work that everyone has done.
Jeff, Chair Polreese, one more. I forgot Ryan Cox.
Thank you, Ryan.
As always, I'm awesome. This is great. We get to try things we've been talking about for 10 years. It's exciting. So loving every minute of it.
Thank you, Ryan. Willie, is there a chance to get Mary to add the names to this list so when Les has it, it's more accurate now?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm going to give you, you'll be last, but I want to ask a couple other questions first.
Okay.
Lori, could I suggest a play about COVID? Maybe that would be something the kids could do. We already have the masks. We have the props. Tammy, could you make a collaboration of or a collage of all this testimony that we just heard and put it out as a commercial for the district?
Great idea.
What great info. And then, Willie, you shared that each Friday you get the data. Is that data coming from the state? Because I thought that was every 2 weeks. Is that different data?
No, they started to clarify it early, and Chair Polreese, you know how it is. We were told certain things in the spring, and then it changed, 10 days later. And so earlier this summer, we were told we were going to, when the governor first did the executive order, he told us we were going to receive it every 2 weeks. Now we're understanding that we're going to receive it every Friday.
Awesome. Okay. And I'm going to ask a question I know the answer to. This is for Willie. Will we ever be able to change the model for individual schools based on numbers?
At this time, I would not recommend that. And it gets to a whole bunch of different things. You can get to equity within the district. It opens up a whole can of a whole lot of different things. One of the things that steps in the way of that and that makes it prohibitive to be able to do that, first and foremost, is transportation, because we have the 2 or 3 or 80 different tier system. And so that's Gary sitting back, and I said the 80 tier system. So that's one of the very first things that we start to think about. And then it gets into, I look at the operational aspects. So I'm looking at Gary there, and I look at Tracy from an HR standpoint. Now in terms of staffing, in terms of how we would do that within the district, that becomes a whole lot more complicated. So at this point in time, we would not recommend that.
Got it. And then Ryan, any chance you could flip back to the model screen, the first slide that was on Willie's presentation? The one that lists different grade levels.
Ryan, I believe that would be slide number 4. The one, Chair Poirier, that says hybrid learning model recommendation?
Probably.
That one?
Not that one.
Oh, that's the grade level one.
Go back one, Ryan. The one where it actually, the one where it doesn't include pre-K, and it should.
That's the one that says hybrid learning model.
Right there.
Yep.
Is pre-K left out on purpose, or is that an error?
That's an error.
Okay. Can we get that updated so when people log in, they get the right information? Okay.
Yes, we can fix that.
All right. And then last but not least, in 30 minutes or less, can you give me how you're feeling, if you can still feel?
Are you talking to me?
Yep. Talking to you, Willie.
That's in, how do I feel? Well, yeah, I'm sitting there listening to all the execs, and they leave me speechless. And so I feel honored to work with them. And it was interesting. I probably owe some of them steak dinners and things of that nature, because they worded things nicely in terms of how I had interactions with the executive or with the cabinet. They're smiling now because I wasn't always in a festive mood as we were having conversations. And so they said things in terms of tonight that I said, hey, we can go and be greater than that. That's not exactly how I phrased it. I'll just say it like that. But one of the first things I would say is, I want it, and you hear me saying thank you to that executive team. I'm saying thank you to the leadership, not just there, because they are creative, they're gifted, they're dedicated, and they have the interest of students, staff, and this community. So that's who they are. But with that, I also, besides wanting to say thank you to the board, because you hold us accountable. You ask questions, and sometimes those questions are tough. And so we need that. We thrive on that. And so continue to do that. I want to say thank you to the community for the feedback, whether it's and I see Mr. Dahlgren, Al has more questions, Jeff, or it was waving his hand, Jeff. I see the community for the feedback, whether it's in town halls, whether it's sending us emails, calling us on the phone, and expressing all the different perspectives and the multiple ways of looking at things. And not all of the community agreed with each and everything, but I'm saying thank you to the community for responding and for giving us your feedback so that we could work with it and try to make the decision and make recommendations that were in the best interest of our community. And so I'm saying thank you for that. Jeff, when you say, how do I feel? It's almost, I don't even know how to put that in words, and I'm never speechless, okay? And so most people tell you I'm not speechless, but some people will tell you that it's tough sometimes to get me to say what I think or to put my voice into the room. And so in this moment in time, in terms of putting my voice into the room, I guess the way I would phrase it is, I've been riding my bike early in the morning. I've been taking walks late at night or later in the evening. And I heard somebody say that, everybody's exhausted. And so, yep, we're all exhausted and worried and can't sleep. And I think I'm probably modeling all that. And we're on the phones with each other at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday, and we're getting after it. But I think about the kids. So, Mr. Chair Polreese, this is where I'm at. How do I feel? I feel blessed that we, as a collective unit of adults, keep kids at the forefront and in the center of every decision that we've been making. And that doesn't happen everywhere. When we sit and start making decisions, we talk about the impact on kids. And so with that, as I'm walking down the street and I'm looking at kids shoot baskets in their driveway and playing catch with their parents, I feel fortunate that we, the Board of Education, district administration, and all the adults, whether you're licensed or non-licensed, have an impact on kids. And even in these unprecedented times, we have that at the forefront of our minds. We're working towards that and we're doing the best that we can to make sure that our kids are forming those relationships with different individuals and different adults in this district. Will we have some bumps and bruises? Will there be some rocky moments? Will there be some challenging times? Will there be something that we have not thought of? Probably not, because we're just that good. I'm just waiting for a reaction there. I was looking for them to smile, nobody else smiled, but all these masks make it so I can't see everybody's reaction to that. So will there be some moments in time? Yes, there will. Do I think that we'll rise to that occasion? Without doubt, and with not just the people on this call, but with community's help and support, we will get through this. That's how I feel.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you, Monica, for asking that question. That was great. Without further ado, I'm looking for a motion to accept the back to school plan 2020-21 as Willie just described. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Natalie, do I have a second? Les, Indiana? Okay. All right. Could you please take roll, Les? Do you need this?
No. Yes, I can take roll. No, you're good. Jeff Fulbright.
Yes.
Shannon Hawes.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt.
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth.
Yes.
Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Monica Sierra Schwartz.
Yes.
Les Green is yes.
Thank you very much, Les. Next, we will move on to item number 4. Item A, it's Superintendent's Report. It will be done by Superintendent Willie Jett.
All right. First and foremost, the district is hosting a series of virtual town halls for families this week and next week. Topics include COVID responses and notifications, special education services and 504s, and what to expect in a school day. Options for Somali and Spanish language translations will be provided. We're hosting those town halls also. And the schedule for these town halls is listed on our district website. And one of the things I'd like to add is all the questions that we received tonight, and anytime people are calling us on the phone and sending emails, we're, as Chair Polreese mentioned earlier this evening, we are always trying to revise our FAQs, our frequently asked questions on the website. So please continue to ask and understand that principals and administrators from sites will be sending out more and more communication specific to their buildings. With that, it says our back to school resource pages are on the district website, including our family guide, FAQs, I already covered that. The district welcome center has reopened to the public. 4 people will be allowed into the welcome center at a time when staff are present. For everyone's health and safety, all visitors will be screened and masks are required. You may also schedule an appointment for enrollment by calling the welcome center. Online enrollment is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And lastly, we are also excited to announce the new hashtag 742 Be the Difference campaign. So you know me, some people know that I'm not always up to date with things. So it looks like a hashtag to me, 742 Be the Difference campaign. Tammy, I hope that was correct. We will be beginning this campaign with the Welcome Back kickoff in just a few weeks. And with that, Chair Polreese, I conclude my superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir. Next, we will go up to committee reports. We'll start with Board Development, Policy, and Governance Committee. Shannon Hawes as chairwoman.
Yes, we met in July 28th. It was myself, Elle Dahlgren, Zach Dorhalt. Also joined us was Marcia, Carol, Amy, and Lori. As you noticed last board meeting, we've had a lot of policies that have come up for review and have been bombarded. I appreciate tonight not having any. However, it was way too many last time. So we're working on that as well as a lot of other policies. We meet next Tuesday, August 25th. And one of the things that we're looking at is the upcoming school calendar. We put together a board projection of outlooks. So when are school presentations? When do we have community ed presentation? When do we have social emotional learning? So if you're always welcome to suggest agenda topics at any time throughout the year, but this is a particular time of year that we look at the calendar year as a whole. If you have any suggestions that you haven't mentioned, certainly get them our way and we will take a look at them. So again, we're meeting then next Tuesday on the 25th. Thank you.
Next up would be Finance Chair Elle Dahlgren.
Mike, Al.
Yep, there you go. You're on. Oh, he was on. Now you're up. You're off again now.
Al, you're muted.
Yep. Al, I'm going to come back to you. Natalie, you ready? Go ahead and prep. It's Natalie Ringsmith, Chairwoman of Achievement, Integration, and Equity Committee.
Thank you, Chair Polleries. We had a meeting this week, and we talked about equity in our COVID-19 school year plans. Had a discussion about many things that we also have talked about tonight. A lot of it dealing with communication with our families who may not speak English, and just making sure that we are getting all information to people as they need it to make sure they know what's happening. We also talked about information overload and how, as a parent these days, you get so much, which is great from the school district, but then how do you decipher which is the most important? So just talking about the different ways we have information, and then also how do not only parents, but like you were talking about, Jeff, you were looking for a link to attend one of the meetings. How there are folks in the community that are really helping our families through this unprecedented time, as Superintendent Jett said. And so Monica had talked about really wanting to make sure that advocates can access that information as well in the community to walk parents and families through exactly what is needed. We also talked about how videos, of course, are great, and I know that our team, led by Tammy, does great work with videos, and we're talking about possibly the superintendent email that comes out once a week to families. If sometimes that could also be on video and have that on social media, because of the overload of emails. You know, I was saying if you have 3 kids in 3 different schools, so you're getting things from Superintendent Jett, all 3 principals, you know, it's really overwhelming. But sometimes maybe if you're scrolling through Facebook and you see Superintendent Jett's face pop up, that maybe you'll click on a little 60-second thing. So just trying to reach everybody in all the ways that we can these days. The main item that we began talking about in this meeting and will continue talking about in September is kind of what Shannon mentioned, our school presentations that are given to the board. And Dr. Huff was able to give us a brief overview of where we started when she first was in the mix of helping with school presentations and where we've gotten to now. And we also had the question of what are we missing and what are the next steps. And so this is the interactive part of the board meeting where we would love to ask you guys as board members those two questions. And Sylvia or Dr. Huff is actually going to be on or is on here, and she's going to be notating what you're saying, because then we're going to look for similarities in that and then be able to make a more consistent plan for board presentations. I know it has been that if one board member or a number of board members say, hey, I think I'm not getting enough of this, let's do this. Depending on who's the head of the Achievement and Equity Integration Committee, it can change how presentations happen. And so we want to bring consistency into that. And so this is the beginning of that process. Our goal here, just so you know, before you answer those questions, is very similar to how yearly each committee revisits their mission and their goal, to make sure that we have a clear mission and goals for school presentations, and that those are revisited as well, so that in the middle of the year we don't have the way that school presentations are coming to us change, but there is always consistent look at, is this the right thing that we're doing, or the right way we're going about it, or getting all the information we need. So if you've had some time to think about it, that's great, and can share with us. Of course, if anything comes up, just email Dr. Huff and I afterwards, and that can also be included in our September meeting. But Chair Polreese, you want to call on people and they can just answer those two questions? Or
Zach, anything on your mind?
So the questions are, again, what's the purpose of school presentations to the board? And what were my two questions here? Basically, the purpose and goals is what, if you can say as a board member what you would like the purpose and goals to be of those school presentations.
Shannon, any input? Oh.
Yeah.
I think kind of year number 2 on the board, I like what we're doing and the purpose to inform us. And I think it's so far been a great way for us to provide that oversight as for a board. And I've been impressed by how the delivery, I look forward to them. It's hard to get a grasp of what's going on everywhere. And so the purpose is to inform us, and the intent so we can provide oversight. So those are my thoughts. I'm a big fan of them. I can't lie.
Shannon, move on to you.
I like the school presentations. We at one time had them doubled up, and that was too much. So I like it to keep it spread out, where we only see no more than one a night. And that I think we're doing every other year now, and I appreciate that. I understand other board members often want, and sometimes I do, more data. So either whether it's included in the presentation or it's emailed along with that. So more of the numbers. I like seeing sort of the personality of the school. And so you can get a really good feel for what's going on in the school.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that Dr. Huff had said, is that, apparently I can't remember which school it was. Oak Hill, I think, Dr. Huff, was the most well-received, got the most positive comments from board members. And she had shared that with us again. And she said, there's data in it and there's the personality. Sometimes, anyway, for me, when the data is one piece, but then everything else in the presentation is personality, and you don't mix those two things in and do them in concert, then it can be like all our questions are about data. It seems kind of disjointed, but thank you, Shannon.
Les, anything you'd like to see?
off the thing. It says red. First of all, I'm trying to figure out how this concept got on integration and equity. That committee is now managing or dealing with school presentations. However, it doesn't matter. It's a good point. When some years ago when we were talking about those, first of all, we tried to move them all to the televised meeting because it seemed to me at that time and to some of us that the importance of the public being able to see on our website presentations by the school was very important, and not to have them during our work session, which was not recorded. So I think that value, and then in terms of consistency on what's done, I think probably we should collectively decide what points need to be hit by every school so that we provide some consistent information base to the public about what we're doing, how well we're doing, where we need improvement, and things of that nature. Beyond that, I think they should be only done on recorded or televised meetings or recorded meetings, so that they wind up on our website, so somebody can click on a school presentation and get information about it. But that's my comments.
Thanks, Les.
Monica, any comments?
So my comments are mostly to you, Chair Porras. I really think that we should have deeper conversation on this during a work session that is not like going around with the question, but it's a little bit more of discussion and actually working together about what Les was talking about. What are the points that each presentation needs to hit? Part of the reason why this ended up in our committee, Les, is because an important part for the presentations for many years have been looking at equity for the students, and or at least that's how I understood when I came to be part of that committee 4 years ago, and looking at information and data about how students were getting there. And there were board members back there that were very interested in having a specific data, specific segregated in specific ways, and showing every time. But then one thing that we heard in our meeting from administration is that at some point the board said, well, no, but you're showing me too much data and I want to know about the story and I want to know about this. So they change it and readjust. And then at some other point, then we change it again. And I also remember Natalie reflecting in our meeting, it seems like we wanted to change a lot. And one is the thing that I think that we wanted to accomplish is to be able to give a clear guidance to the administration about what we need to see in those presentations. And I don't, at least during the 4 years that I have been in this board, we haven't really had the conversation as a board about what the presentation needs to hit. I think that that's the best way to answer that question, to ask that question. Yes, the purpose of this is as Zach says it, kind of keep us informed and give us an overview. And when I was new at the board, I said, okay, this is great. I'm learning all this and that. And then my next time to see a presentation, I tried to go back to the presentation the year before to make a comparison and see what I'm learning now that is different from what I learned before. What is this telling me about? Have we made progress or not? And it's not always easy to do that. And I'm not sure that that's the best way to phrase it or to be looking at it. But that's kind of why we brought this conversation here. And if it's, and what I sometimes I think that I don't get a full picture of the school or what happens in the school, because activities, for example, get separate. They are not in the presentation of the school. We have a separate presentation for activities, and activities are presented to us as a separate item. So when activities are presented to us, I am not sure where do the activities happen or what are the students that are involved in them. So that's kind of why I wanted to, or why this conversation kind of just wanted to make some more comments about what we discussed in that meeting that brought us to have this question for you. So just my comments for right now.
All right, thank you. Al, any comments?
Or not, looks like it's on. This question has been around for a long time, and it's not for a lack of trying, and it's not for a lack of conversation about it. There's been multiple personalities chairing boards, and there's been multiple personalities on the boards and on the committees that determine this stuff. And the question has always been, if we do it at the televised meeting as a public presentation, then are we trying to show the public kind of a real positive story about each school and what they're doing in a positive light, or are we trying to show the board numbers and data and who is it for? And when you start to show a lot of data, then the question is, different schools within our districts have very different demographics and very different results. And if we start to share too much data, does it pit schools against each other? Does it cause issues in the way that people understand the data? So it becomes more complicated than it probably should. My personal preference is more is better. I don't want to see more than one school. I don't mean more schools like at meetings, but one school per meeting at most. And I want to know, how is it going? How is the school performing in math, reading, science, and all of the and in the art, yes, and in the arts and extracurriculars also, there should be some information on that. A school personality, sharing the personality of the school and the things that go on within the school. But within that data, I want to see a consistent format so that every time a school presents, they're presenting the same data in the same format. And I do think that it should be multi-year, and I think that it should include both STAR data so we can see growth, and it should include MCA data so we can see where that school is as far as what their average scores would be within that school. I want to see those for 2 to 3 years, both of them, because growth doesn't mean anything by itself, and MCA data really doesn't mean anything by itself. It's the combination of the two that we have to put together to see if a school is underperforming. I want to see more growth. If they're overperforming, then maybe not as much growth. I would still want to see as much growth as possible, but maybe not. I won't see as much growth. And then there should be somewhere in there where there's some comparisons within the district also. So to district average or to other schools within the district. If it's being presented to board members as a report card on the school, then I want to get a report card. And I don't want to pick and choose numbers. I don't want to look at partial data. I want to see it all, and I want to be able to absorb it all and figure out and know what's going on in that school. And so that's a lot to ask for. And then they get to be so long that
It's 11:30.
You don't want to sit through them. So, but that's what I think. It has to be consistent from school to school to school, and we need multiple data points, and it should include all of the major areas that we need to look at and that we're accountable for. And it should also include a really good presentation of the personality of the school and the special things that they do, because each school is unique in the things that they do. Every school looks different and does things differently. That should show also. That's my 2 bits.
All right. I would probably echo a lot of what I just heard. I want consistent data, not only from every school, but I don't want consistent data this year and then next year. Oh, now we're tracking it a different way. Next year it's a different way. I want it to be the same for like 3-4 years so you really get the true picture. If the school has a deficiency, I don't want it glossed over. I want to own it. I want to be respectful of that. If you have a problem, let's work on it, but let's not hide it. And that's kind of what Al was referring to. I mean, don't pick and choose the data. That's the data. We own it. Let's do something about it. I love the personal stories. So I think it is a hard balance. You need data, but you also need the personality of that school because it is unique. I was an advocate to do board meetings in the schools. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know it was hard for the administration, and I get that we should be back here because now all these will be televised. So during the presentation, I hope it's not just slides. I hope it's a video or a little bit so you can actually see what the building looks like, because I think we'd all admit that when we went to Oak Hill, I learned a lot about Oak Hill. I was like, wow, I'm glad I was seeing it in person. So if we can't have the luxury of doing it as a board, maybe we should have a tour of the schools weekend where it's open to the public or something, or maybe the board could do it. I know you'd have to notice it, but it's a shame if a board member hasn't physically been in every building in our district. Shame on us if you haven't. So, I mean, I saw the value in that. Definitely once every 2 years, definitely never more than one school a night. And we live in Minnesota. I would schedule them. I wouldn't schedule Clearview in December or January. That was a long drive. So, and when's the last time we saw McKinley? Anyone? Les, you ever see McKinley as a board? As a presentation even? Yeah. Riverwoods? I mean, so it really needs to be every school.
I actually have seen McKinley several times. That's almost every year it's presented. Al Johnson presented it.
Oh, Al did. Okay. So that's my point. It should be every school.
And we've had a board meeting at Riverwoods. You weren't on the board then, but we have had one at Riverwoods.
So back to your thing, Monica. I will redirect your request. You now have a request from a board member to somehow see if we can get that on for a work session. All right.
Can I make an amendment? Just because of you said something. So one thing that I like to ask you to think, because we all think in different ways and understand in different ways, is that you made a good list, Jeff, about what specific things, and I think now did some similar list, what the specific things you like to see in your representation. What I wanted to ask you, and not for you to answer right now, but maybe to think about for when we have this meeting, is what for? I wanted to understand what for do you want to see each part? What do you want to see the data for? I mean, I can guess, but I do really want you to say it. And I want you to say that what for do you want to see the story of, I don't remember exactly what you said about the story of the district or the tour. So we can start thinking about, like, as you were talking about that and you were thinking about the what for, you yourself came up with maybe what we need to do is to do a tour for the schools every time and maybe we can think a little bit out of the presentation for those things. But that was part of the reason why we didn't do this, the what for. The part of the reason why we thought that we had too much change is because we're not clear about what is for each thing that we're asking, and sometimes we ask just put this and this and this and that, and then we get a big list. And maybe not everybody is fulfilling the purpose. So just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Right. Les, you have a comment?
Am I being heard? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are. Always.
I think, yeah. Thank you for that. I think one of the things that's really important is that we begin to step outside of ourselves a bit and ask teachers what they think we ought to know about what they do and how they do it. Because we tend to overlook that. Additionally, custodians, what do they do? I've had some conversations with custodians that have a passion for what they do, for the cleanliness of those buildings and what they think kids can learn. I mean, it's amazing if you sit and talk to some of those guys about how they feel about what they do and why they do it. And so, and it comes, if you're campaigning, it will come in terms of visiting the school and having them talk about having to cut back and clean a room every other night, and why they don't like that and what it means for the little kids. And just amazing the kind of ways they talk about what they do. So asking the people out there, what do they think a 7-member school board really ought to know about what they do and why they do it is important.
All right, thank you. I think we're all in agreement. It might be a very fun and useful work session. Can't wait.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Jeff. And I think that, the main reason that we have this topic is because the first word in our committee is achievement. And so that's really what we should be monitoring in these schools. Yes, everything, but that is really what schools are first and foremost, to make sure that we're having that growth, like Al was talking about, and those MCA snapshots to look at that and make sure we're doing okay and that we're achieving what we want to do. Just from my perspective, I just wanted to say 2 things. I think it's the consistency in the why we go about it and the way we go about seeing if we're still doing it right. So checking in once a year and saying, is this still what we want? Or, having that consistency, because that's what I've noticed on the board is when one member is the chair of a committee, the committee can totally change. Maybe not with some of the things like policy or finances, but with more malleable committees like the one that I chair, that's just what I've noticed. I just want to echo what Jeff and Al said as well, that sometimes when it's an all personality presentation, and then I come with the hard data, and then I feel I know that's my job to do that, but then I almost feel like the deflating of the balloon in the room, instead of it being like the principal and the team gets to tell their story and own that story, instead of me kind of coming in and sweeping the rug out from them, which I'm sure they don't feel that way. I'm sure they're happy to answer it, but that's why we're talking about this. So, the next step is to talk for Dr. Huff and I to talk and see where our intersections are, and then talk about it in our committee. And then, if we can talk about it in a work session as well, that'd be great. So we make sure we are all on the same page.
Can you make sure that happens this year? Find a spot. All right, Al, Finance Committee report. You had a long time to prep, Al.
Okay, my mic should be on now. Now I got to get to that other screen. Board Finance Committee, we met on August 13th. It was me, Amy, Gary, Jeff, Scott Andreasen, and Willie, along with Mike Spanier, David Leopold, Paul Quirin from Design Tree Engineering, Jay Vogel, and Ben Oman from Bradbury STEM, and Nancy Schulzenberg from Bergen KDV. The first item on the agenda was this building in the 10-year facilities plan. It had been planned that this building have some updates done to its HVAC system. That was known, and it is nearing end of life on that system that's in there, and we have some real inconsistencies throughout the building with heating and cooling and temperatures. And so to install a new system, David Leopold and Paul Folsom, and Jay Vogel and Ben Oman came in and reviewed their recommendations for what we do with this building. We'd also be replacing the roof when that was done, because when you take the old units off the roof and put new units in, it's going to change some of the configuration, and therefore it's going to need a roof, but we knew that also. This one is near end of life. It's not a surprise for us. So anyway, it's planned within the 10-year long-term facilities maintenance plan, and they were presenting what they recommend to us, and it will be coming to the board with a call for bids sometime in September. Then next, Nancy Schulzenberg reviewed the fiscal year 2020 audit plan, and there weren't a lot of surprises in there. We had a pretty long talk, but it's pretty comprehensive. The activities portion, which we've always asked for some extra looks into this year, has been moved into under board control, so that is part of the audit going forward. And so we were in favor of moving forward with the plan as it was presented. We talked about the CARES budget, the CARES Act budget, and Amy reviewed the budget and went through the detailed list of items that have been purchased and or are being requested to be purchased using CARES Act funding. And the committee suggested sharing the CARES Act information with the entire board. And this will be added to a future board agenda. I think it was going to be in
Next one.
next month. So, okay. So that will be coming forward to you next month also. And then lastly, we have talked for many months about installing some type of a POS system for activities for our concession stands and school stores and ticket sales. And so Amy has looked into it and she reviewed information about the possibility of using a POS system for concessions. She's going to continue looking at options, but doesn't suggest adding a full POS system at this time due to both cost and logistical challenges. Amy suggested adding credit card readers for concessions and for ticket sales, so that we can minimize cash collections and provide it as an option for people to pay, many who don't have cash. And a lot of people don't carry cash, and when they go to a concession stand, they just want to swipe their card and be done with it. But that doesn't mean that we need a full inventory control POS system, which is a fairly expensive thing to install. I mean, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars to do it at both high schools and in the multiple spots that we need it. So it's not just a simple thing. And there's logistics of how do you train everyone on it, because they're often run by volunteers for one night or two nights, and who's in control of it and how does the information get used. So I think really for starters, we'd like to see something done in the school stores where we have greater control over it and we can use the system and determine whether it's going to be useful. And it would be a much lesser investment. And then also installing credit card readers at concessions and ticket booths seems to be kind of a no-brainer to me. And then that money just gets deposited into the account without being handled by anyone. So that concludes the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Al. Amy, I have a question for you. What are we proceeding with?
For the POS system?
Yeah, what part? I think the whole committee was in agreement. We need to get our feet wet and jump in there.
Yep. So we're so in theory, we're going to proceed with a card reader for concessions, although we aren't going to have concessions for fall, but we want to get that up and running. So when we do start concessions, we have the software, the readers, we're ready to go. Same thing for ticket taking. And then I'm going to work with Carol to see, and again, I think those decisions are still being made about the student-run coffee shops with considerations, surrounding student safety, whether those will be open or what that looks like. So we may have to delay that just depending on if the venue to, roll something forward as a pilot exists right now. But for sure, we want to get that planning done so that as soon as we have operations back to normal, we can be ready to go with that.
Can you assure me that that will be done soon? Like while I am still on the board?
Yes, I was going to say if you were going to say before school starts, I think Carol would have had some argument with me if I called her tomorrow and said that was something we needed to do. But absolutely, once we get back up and rolling with school starting, we're going to look at that and make sure that we get that moving forward.
Thank you. All right, there is no committee report from legislative, and there is no committee report from personnel. So that is our committee reports for the night. Item 4, future agenda items. As I already mentioned, we're going to be shared the CARES Act. We are going to get an activities update, and we are going to get a second reading on, and I'm not even going to list them, I'm going to say several proposed board policies. And they're the second reading, so nothing else can go on that agenda, because that's going to be a full night. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's always there. All right. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for great presentations. Have a good summer. See you all back in school. We're all excited. Good night.
All right.